Would like to call the Connecticut State Board of Education meeting to order. Please rise for the pledge of allegiance. Oh, it's over there. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome all and happy June, and finally looking like June weather out there, which is nice, and happy Pride Month, everyone. We're going to start with our public participation. I remind you when you come to the table, please state your name and address, and there is a 3-minute limit on those remarks. Sarah, you could call them, please.
Good morning. I'll be calling people for public participation 2 at a time. The first 2 speakers this morning are Javon and Joseph Skolovic.
Hello, Commissioner and board members. My name is Javon Skolovic, 334 Burnsford Avenue, Bridgeport, Connecticut, speaking on behalf of Joseph Skolovic and future students of Bridgeport. We are going on record today so there's no confusion next year when the state inevitably tries to change the narrative. So we are telling you today why Bridgeport will require approximately $30 million in additional funding in fiscal year 2028. We want to state plainly what that number will not reflect. It will not reflect mismanagement nor overspending. It will not be a local failure. It will be the predictable and avoidable result of state decisions, specifically one-time funding that is not guaranteed. Bridgeport is currently relying on roughly $15 million in supplemental one-time ECS-related funding and another $10 million in non-recurring tax stabilization grants. That is $25 million in temporary funding. These dollars are not outside of the ECS formula. They are not permanent, and there are no built-in increase for fiscal year 2028 to replace them. Only flat funding at best. Before we discuss any expansion or improvement, we are already facing a $25 million hole from the expiration of these one-time measures and $15 million in escalated costs. Bridgeport escalated costs are mainly driven by contractual obligations and inflation. This is not discretionary spending. This is the cost of keeping the system operating at its current level. Additionally, there is $5 million that was authorized by the General Assembly that has still not been released. Students are absorbing the impact. When you put this together, the math is simple. A loss of temporary funding combined with withheld funds and ongoing cost pressures results in a structural gap approaching $30 million just to avoid cuts. Nothing is wrong with Bridgeport. This outcome is exactly what happens when temporary funding is used to solve permanent problems. This is not stabilization, it's just delay. We've seen this pattern before. The 2013 study identified many of the same issues we're discussing today, including a foundation level that is too low, poverty rates that understand need, and a wealth calculation that distorts the district's true ability to pay.
Board members, Joseph Skolovic, 334 Burnsford Avenue, Bridgeport, Connecticut. As my son said, the foundation level is way too low to pay poverty rates, understate the need, and the wealth calculation that distorts the district's true ability to pay. Many of the recommendations from this 2013 study were never fully implemented. So while current reviews are important, they will not matter if the conclusions are allowed to sit on a shelf for another 13 years. With that in mind, we want to place into the record a set of recommendations based on the existing ECS formula. First, the foundation amount must be increased to $17,500, beginning with a minimum of $14,500, increasing by $750 a year for the next 4 years to move us closest to the actual cost of education. Second, the formula must better account for concentrated poverty in districts where poverty levels approach 90%. Small changes in weighting create significant differences. Increasing the poverty rate would more accurately capture the true cost of educating high-need students. Third, the wealth calculations must be corrected. The current formula weights property wealth at 70% and income at 30%, overstating local capacity. Shifting to a 40% property and 60% income model would better reflect actual fiscal reality. When these adjustments are applied together, the EPS formula produces approximately $30 to $35 million for Bridgeport. Not a bailout. It's what the formula yields when it reflects real world conditions. This would help all districts see basically equitably. Equally important, predictably establishing an annual foundation increase, which would allow funding to keep pace with rising costs. Bridgeport is not asking for more than our kids deserve. It is asking for honesty in funding and a system that reflects equity rather than temporary appearances. Finally, special education. The seed grants must be fully funded, not at 17%, but at 100%. And the reimbursement rates for excess costs must increase as well. We got to drop that 4.5 times, at least 3.5, not 3.5 100 increase the cost there. And the reimbursement rates there. If this is not done, a negative outcome will not be a surprise. It will be the result of decisions already in motion. Today is June 3rd, 2026. And we are going on record to make sure the record is clear for next year. Thank you.
Thank you. The next two speakers are Sarah Turner and Jasmine Jones.
Again.
Yes, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Sarah Turner, and I live at 115 Riverview Ave in New London, Connecticut. And I'm here today to speak about our Connecticut statute, the School Governance Council. I had started reaching out to the State Department of Education in the spring of 2025. We in New London are required to have School Governance Council under the Connecticut General Statutes, but we failed to have one since before COVID. I've been working with members from the State Department, John Brasinelli, Judy Carson. I did actually get into a Zoom meeting with the commissioner earlier this year and express my concerns. It is now June. The school did hold an election process. There were members that were elected. And then I went back to all the information that's provided on the State Department of Education website. And clearly, even though the State Department indicated that they were instructing the school on how to do it correctly, it obviously is not in line with what's on the website. I watched the video, I've read everything. I printed out some emails for you all today. I did send another request to Judy Carson and John Brasinelli and the principal on Monday. I failed to be able to ever get anyone on the phone or via email often. It's just kind of like kicking the can down the road. The commissioner did acknowledge when I was in that parent Zoom a few months ago, that there does need to be some revisit to School Governance Council, as it sounds like maybe in its current outdated form, it's not in the best structure to meet the needs of the schools and the communities it serves. But I will say, I reached out to Wyndham Schools yesterday, and they still, although they said it doesn't always work the best, but they still have their School Governance Council up and going. And the reason why they said they do is because they received Title I funds. And so they have an obligation to follow the statute. In New London, I've been asking for this. My daughter, who is now going to be going into her senior year, I have been asking for the last 2 years just to get some help and support. The state has indicated they've come down several times and have reassured me time and time again we would get this going. So what am I asking for today? I'm just asking for clarity. If we are no longer going to follow the Connecticut statute or any of the things that are on the website, please just tell me. Then I can stop wasting my time and your time and everyone's time on trying to implement something that is no longer in its current standing. But I think that it sounds like we're not the only district that is suffering with this, outdated maybe legislation. And it is very difficult, especially as I listen to Bridgeport talk about their financial struggles. We obviously in New London have the same issue. And when we are going through a process where we are deciding last minute to close an entire school and an entire program, and there's really no community input, there's plans being submitted to the state, but we don't know what those plans are. And it is really difficult every year going into school, not knowing what to expect, what guidance we have. And my understanding is that, our local Department of Education.
Ms. Turner.
I'm sorry, local Department of Education is like a pass-through for the State Department of Education, to work on the behalf. So I would just ask that please get us some guidance soon before we get to next year so we know what we need to do. Thank you.
My name is Jasmine Jones. I am planning of 126 Hobart Street, Newgate, Connecticut. I'm here to advocate for Amistad Academy Middle School. My son is a scholar there now in the 5th grade. He started at Amistad in 1st grade, where I decided to put him because I saw the work that was being done in the classrooms as a staff member at the middle school. So when I made the decision to enroll him in Amistad, as a parent, knowing all of the hard work that teachers are pouring into our scholars, I knew it was what was best for my student. I'm really here as a parent, just advocating on the behalf of our charter renewal. Not only am I a parent who's deeply invested in my son's education, I also work at the middle school. I've been at the middle school for 11 years, where I have poured into hundreds of children and hundreds of children have poured into me. I know for certain, without a shadow of a doubt, that we're changing lives at my school. And to even think about there being a possibility of the charter not being renewed and how that would affect the families, the kids, our community, it is devastating. I'm not sure if or where anybody is from, but if anybody has ever come out to our school community events, where not only our scholars come out, but the children in our neighborhood, even if they don't go to our school, participate in these events. And it is just a lovely place to be.
Thank you. The next 2 speakers, Sydney Johnson and Tanisha Edward.
Good morning. My name is Tiffany Johnson. I live at 470 Howard Avenue, New Haven, Connecticut. And I just wanted to say thank you to the state for renewing the charter. As a parent who has been part of this community for the past 7 years, this decision means more to me than words can fully express. This school has shaped not only my child's education, but their confidence, growth, and future. Over the years, I've watched teachers, staff, and leadership pour into our students academically, emotionally, and personally. Renewing this charter means continued opportunity, continued support, and continued belief in children like mine. It means families like ours can keep being a part of the community that pushes students to dream bigger, work harder, and believe in themselves. As a parent, there's no greater feeling than knowing your child is in a place where they are seen, challenged, supported, and loved. So today, I just want to sincerely say thank you for investing in our students, our families, and our future. Your decision truly impacts lives, and my family is incredibly thankful.
Good morning. My name is Tanisha Edwards, and I reside at 168 Tudhill Street, West Haven, Connecticut. I am requesting a waiver for the Foundations of Reading certification requirement. I have served as a special education teacher with New Haven Public Schools for the past 5 years, working in a self-contained classroom, supporting students with a wide range of behavioral and cognitive needs. My instructional responsibilities include teaching reading, writing, and math, as well as providing life skills instruction for students in grades 2 through 8th grade. For my upper grade students, I also support transition planning to prepare them to shift to high school. My professional experience has strengthened my commitment to the special education field and demonstrates my capability to serve diverse learners effectively. I earned my Master's of Arts in Teaching in Special Education K-12 from Southern Connecticut State University in 2022. Although I completed the program successfully, the university was unable to recommend me for certification because I am no longer a student. As a result, passing the Foundations of Reading test has remained the only issue preventing me from obtaining my initial certification in special education. Despite my dedication, I have been unable to meet the certification requirements through this assessment. I have taken the Foundations of Reading test 5 times without reaching the required passing score of 240. I have had considerable time, efforts, and financial resources in preparation, including hiring a tutor, which is right here, completing multiple structural literacy trainings during the 2024-2025 school year. Unfortunately, these efforts have not resulted in a passing outcome, and the ongoing attempts have created financial hardships and significant emotional stress, leading me to question my future and my career I am deeply committed to. Given the urgency of maintaining my employment and continuing to serve the students who rely on my support, I respectfully request consideration for a waiver. And then attached are the documents showing my complete Foundations of Reading testing score. Thank you.
I've never spoken to Michael.
Next speaker, are you Donna?
I am Donna.
Okay.
Yeah, and I wasn't on the list and I know how to count to 2.
I have you on the list as Donna Timon.
Okay, is this on?
Yes, it is.
I don't shoot microphones. Okay, my name is Donna Timon and I live at 55 West Prospect Street, New Haven, Connecticut. I taught in New Haven for 30 years. I'm still in New Haven, tutoring part-time. That sounds. I'm here as an advocate for Tanasia Edwards, whom I have tutored since her sophomore year in high school and through college, and definitely for Foundations of Reading. I would strongly urge you to waive the Foundations of Reading test, which is required, and I understand that. My reasons are that she is an effective teacher, and this is also supported by her supervisor's input. If you think back on your own educational days, from which teacher did you learn the most and why? It wasn't his or her credentials. It was the passion for teaching. And that is what Tanasia is having. It's excellent with the students she works with. So I would again ask that you please waive that requirement so that she can continue teaching and secure about her job. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes public participation for this morning. Thanks. Yep.
Item number 4, the consideration of the minutes. May I have a motion?
Move.
Second.
Any additions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The report of the chair. Just a minute. That's why I'm going to start with you. Ms. Cyber attended the agri-science convention just last weekend.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It was a fabulous session that we had at the Nonnewauk High School. We had 700 people in attendance. And there were a variety of competitions that they had. I was asked to judge the prepared speaking contest, and we heard about everything from climate change to genetics and genomics to all the things that are happening with regard to animal breeding. We had the winner of our competition spoke about foreign land in not only Connecticut, but around the Northeast and across the country. And so just a wide variety of outstanding young people coming together to talk about agriculture, natural resources, and food and nutrition, because those are the areas that are covered, ag mechanics as well. And so for anybody that's not aware, they also do some fantastic plant sales. And so I'm pushing them to do a passport to agri-science activities in their showrooms. They have a variety of things they sell. We heard from our last speaker about Bridgeport. They have to do fish sales. So you've got some amazing young people out there getting ready to make career choices. And I thank you, Madam Chair, for allowing me to share my day with the agri-science students.
Thank you for attending. Just a couple of reminders for the board members. There is a blue ribbon celebration next Tuesday at Conard High School at 1 o'clock. And a reminder, our next meeting is actually our retreat on August 5th, and that will be held at Wilcox Technical School in Meredith. You'll be getting much more information about that. Okay, we're going to move on to committee reports. The first one for item 6A, academic. Good morning, everyone. The Academic Standards and Assessment Committee met on May 19th. We had 3 items for updates and discussion by committee members, and just want to give the board notice that or remind the board that part of this committee's process is that information around academic standards and assessment comes to the committee itself. We have an opportunity to digest it, to provide feedback, and these items, some of these items will be brought to the full board. So you'll get the full benefits, clear benefits and the update. We started off with a brief update around financial literacy, which per state statute is now provided to students, and they can receive up to a half a credit. There was some recent press coverage about what's happening in schools around this, which was very exciting, particularly for those of us that come from a background where this was prioritized as a means of ensuring, financial security, financial stability, and independence. We also had an update about the model curriculum that the Department of Education employs, and an update about right to read and how important this is. That this state has a commitment that every student has the right to read at or above grade level independently and proficiently by the end of the 3rd grade. So we received an update as to how that is progressing. I do want to thank Dr. Hughes and Irene Parisi for all of their support in this committee and ensuring that we receive these updates. And again, they in turn will be coming to the full. I want to thank the commissioner for her commitment to this as well. Thank you. Accountability and support. We met last month to review it and get an update on a few of our charter schools. Our next meeting will be in 2 weeks on June 17th, in which Hartford Public Schools will be our only agenda item that day. Finance, audit, and budget. Mr. Harris.
Good morning. Our Finance, Audit, and Budget Committee last met May 6th. We are a committee that meets quarterly, so our next meeting probably will not take place until early September. The department as a whole is very busy with audits of various systems around the state, and business as usual.
Thank you. Ms. Burr, legislation and policy.
Thank you, Madam. The Legislation, Policy and Development Committee bypassed our meeting last month because Laura very graciously agreed to come and present to the whole board. And we will not be holding any meetings today. There's nothing critical on our agenda due to the length of today's schedule. So thank you.
Yeah. We not have our tech schools or state colleges with us today, so I'll move on to NASB. Thank you to Dr. Lavis and Ms. Record for attending our last member exchange. A lot of interesting things. In fact, as of today, right now, this morning, I guess the U.S. Department of Education is taking on the education budget. So we should be hearing a lot more, and I'm sure Laura is right on that and looking at that. But we always get a federal update on our meetings, and that is taking place today. We went into our Northeast exchange like we usually do during the call, and a couple of the main thing was a lot about screen time, and of course you see that all over the country. That's taking up. NASB is taking up that. I know CDA and AFC are taking up that issue as well. I'm going to let the board member, and I think some of the board members saw the email from NASB about there is a member exchange that is going to just concentrate and focus on screen time with a little bit of cell phone issue on Monday, on June 8th. So if you did not get that link, let me know and I'll make sure I send you out. The person that is running it is the one that he has done, I believe he's from Utah. He supports and pushes a lot the digital delusion book that he recommends everyone should read about the screen time, and really getting to the core piece of why we want, what are we looking at? What are we looking at as our end game? Some other things that we talked about during the breakout session were personal pathways. And so Connecticut, of course, we know is right on that. Our student members and how student members are elected or appointed to the board, how long they serve, was a topic that a lot of us were sharing, and NASB will get us some more from throughout the country on how that happens. And then, snow days and makeups was discussed as well. Being in the Northeast for the winter, and a lot of discussion on how the different states handle it. It was interesting to hear. Some still allow the virtual learning, adding on days, how it's done, the waivers, all that type of thing. So it was a real interesting Northeast conversation. So that is it for NASB. And then your CERT report is in your supplemental folder. Lots of good things out there. So thank you for that. I am going to ask for an item to be moved at this point, item 11. It is our student end of the year presentation by the State Student Advisory Council on Education. We have many students with us this morning that are just so eager to get back to school. And I ask that we can move item 11 at this point in the agenda. Okay. All in favor? Aye. Yeah. So we are on item 11, end of year presentation by the State Student Advisory.
Thank you very much. I have Amy Parisi, our Chief Academic Officer, who works with students to join. It is always so delightful to have our student voice in the room for the presentation. So with that, welcome.
Can you stand, please? Can some of us stand?
Certainly, yeah.
So as mentioned, we are the State Student Advisory Council on Education, and our group will be presenting math today. As we mentioned before, we are the State Student Advisory Council of Education, and we're presenting on math today. My name is Pahansa Matud. I've been serving on the board for about 2 years, and I have the privilege to attend the Magnet School in Windsor, Connecticut Aerospace. I am Tasneem Musa. I come from New Haven Academy. I saw some New Haven representation today, and I have the privilege of representing New Haven and surrounding districts as the student. So today our project focuses on exploring the challenges and the opportunities in teaching and acquiring foundational math skills. And our final goal was to ensure that every student in the state of Connecticut can acquire a strong mathematical foundational skills at a younger age. Subjects for today are our math foundations, math applications, as well as the problem with math and the way to slave it, and math equitability and access. So we will be starting with our student interviews. I did interviews in the district of New Haven, and I did it with 5th graders, and I also did it with 7th and 8th graders. So we started with the younger grades to see when they were learning their foundational skills like decimals and fractions. 100% of them were having troubles with them. They were confused. They found them really difficult, even though it was later in the year where they should have been done with them by then. And then 100% of them found it really hard to ask for help. 80% of them were embarrassed to ask for help from their teachers, but they found it easier from their peers. And then 100% of the students stated that they were usually behind, and that had a really negative it had a really negative effect on their mental health. And then 100% found that there are differences when it comes to students with different backgrounds. And a story one of the students told me is they had a Japanese girl come in, and she was ahead of the entire class, even though she came later in the year, because the resources she had in the after-school programs she was able to be in. And then moving on to our 7th graders and our 8th graders, 77% of the students still found fractions and decimals to be difficult. That is 2 years later after 5th grade. And there was barely any time to focus on the students that wanted to get ahead because of the time dedicated to students that were behind or to the students that were kind of making trouble in the class. And again, embarrassment from asking help from teachers continued on to those older grades. Extra gaps in English learners was still found in 7th and 8th grade. And then I asked them a question about high school preparation. All of them were like, I don't feel prepared from my math side to enter high school or to enter a workforce in the future. And at East Rock Magnet School in New Haven, only 6 students in the 8th grade class were taking Algebra 1. I went to that school and we had an entire class filled with students taking Algebra 1. So from looking at that, I saw that we were going backwards instead of improving these foundational skills for students to enter high school with that foundation already. And then struggles with different level students continue. Students are being separated and labeled as better and less, even though gaps within each class still continue to be there. I had the privilege of interviewing Dr. Mocha, who is the Deputy Superintendent of CREC. She is second in command, the data analyst, and resource allocation. She provided me with data about CREC district block assessments and CREC district SBAC scores, which are up there. After hearing the student interviews, I want to see whether the data reflected what students were telling us. Using assessment data provided by Dr. Mocha, I found evidence of growth in foundational math skills, particularly in areas like operations and fractions. However, significant gaps remain in areas such as algebraic reasoning and geometry. The data shows that while students are making progress in core mathematical concepts, growth is not consistent across all skill areas. These patterns align with themes from the interview, where students describe feeling more confident with foundational math skills, but identify challenges when applying concepts to more complex problem-solving. The data and interviews together raise an important question. How much should a student's zip code determine their educational opportunity? Students are not starting from the same place. Differences in access to resources, academic support, and prior preparation can create inequities long before a test is taken. If we want a truly equitable education system, we must look beyond test scores and ensure that every student, regardless of where they live, have access to the support and opportunities they need. Thank you.
Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Hello, I'm Jermaine Brown. I'm from Prep Academy of Computer Science and Engineering in Enfield. Today I'll be talking about improving math. Please go to the next slide. What are we trying to solve? The way that math is taught in school is not the best way taught. It's because math is really challenging to students. As you guys can see the data. The best way that we thought to solve math was to better align with math with people's possible job outcome or what they're interested in studying in college, so they're more engaged with math. And then also breaking up the math classes so they're not as big, and students work better in smaller math classes. As a student who also struggles with math, I found that being in a smaller classroom was helpful. And then bringing those small classrooms to other schools should help students to better be successful for math. And if you guys start that at a young age, it should be very helpful.
Next slide, please. So my name is Kathy Bailey. I attend Woodland Regional High School in Beacon Falls, Connecticut. However, I'm not here today to represent my district, but rather speak on some issues I've identified and some potential solutions for those issues across the entirety of Connecticut. Next slide, please. So I'd like to begin by looking at some SBAC disparities we've observed over the last couple of years. Now, the purple line up top demonstrates the state average for students meeting or exceeding expectations on SBAC tests. And obviously, our state performs very well. Our state is continuously rated in one of the top 5 for education, a lot of the time switching between first and second with Massachusetts. I mean, I think everyone here knows our state is good at education in general. And I think our state is very passionate and focused on education as well. I mean, if you look around this huge room of people, everyone here is
everyone is here because they're passionate on this issue and some branch of this issue. However, if you look further down on the chart, we can see some areas where there definitely is disconnect. I mean, if you focus mainly on Hispanic or Black students, their average is almost half at about 25%, and multilingual students are as much as a third at 15%. So it's obvious there's some sort of disconnect going here that we need to address. Next slide, please. Another problem that I've identified, and this only spans more as the wealth gap expands more, but even myself, I acknowledge I'm from a very wealthy district. I'm very privileged, and even now, my school sees a lot of problems with the limited trajectory, specifically in math. I go to Woodland, and the highest math level you could tap out at senior year is calculus, which is a privilege and opportunity to be able to take. As a lot of colleges I've been hearing from my peers who are going into STEM don't even offer base level calculus because it's kind of an expectation in those higher level STEM based colleges that you get a calculus education before entering college. However, there's a lot of schools where calculus isn't offered at all because they can't afford to offer these classes or the teachers or support that's needed. This basically means that even when attending public school, not a STEM-based school, just a public school, your zip code is deciding how much you'll be able to succeed even past the high school level in the future of your education and career. Next slide, please. Additionally, I've identified a lot of problems concerning educators. Now, while individual municipalities, meaning district to district, decides a teacher's education, which means the wealthier districts can afford to pay their teachers more and therefore oftentimes get more qualified and better rated teachers. The problem continues to the state level as the state helps subsidize a lot of teacher pensions post-retirement, and they have to give those pensions based on the teacher salaries. This means more state funding is funneled into the pensions of these already higher paid, wealthier districts than the the districts with less money in the first place. Additionally, due to widespread vacancies, because as we know, since COVID, we've had immense teacher shortages in all areas. The Board of Education has also reauthorized multiple emergency policy provisions, such as the Emergency Generalist number 201 and number 202 permits, which allows for teachers who are not trained to teach at these higher levels of education, teachers that are trained to teach in the elementary and middle school levels, to fill in these high school positions because we don't have the teachers for it, which is immensely obviously going to affect these students' educations as they don't have the correct materials and the teachers don't have their correct training to be able to give them this background to carry them into the future. Next slide. So what can be done? For one thing, I think the State Board of Education needs to focus on more teacher equitability across all areas, whether that is providing more funding in the salaries or providing funding to districts so they can hire more teachers to cover more classes. With this, I also would promote the idea of math labs. It's something we have at my school and many of my peers had at their school. It's basically a teacher that sits in an office all day, and throughout the day during their study hall or lunch or advisory periods, students can go in and receive extra support for math. This is direct support, and it makes it much easier because obviously teachers, especially when there's a teacher shortage, don't have the time to meet with students, which is a big reason a lot of students fall behind. Additionally, we would support the idea of the use of online curriculums to help students advance further in math courses if their school's unable to provide them with one. I know we already do online courses for a lot of language classes like ASL, so I would be saying we should promote more online curriculum supported and funded by schools so teachers or students can advance if their school no longer is able to support them through that. And also would give students a second chance because a lot of the times, even with schools that provide these higher level math classes, if you're not good at math in 6th grade, you can't get on that accelerated pathway ever again. So this would provide a second chance for students to always become more accelerated as time goes on as needed. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. And now for what I believe is the best part of the presentation. So, as I said earlier, hello, I hope all is well. My name is Adam Schwicke from West Haven High School, and I'm very happy and jolly to present today.
My name is Olivia Kusa. I'm from Massac High School, and this is my first year on the board. I'm also very excited to present today. Hi, good morning to the board, and thank you for being here. My name is Kayla Len, and I'm a senior at E.O. Smith High School, and we're very excited to present to you today math applications. So that would include any sort of career involvement or the way that math can be applied to future careers, and making sure that students are very well aware of how they can put what they learn in school into the.
Already. Now, I don't really know why our text is white. However, I'll just explain it right over to you. Now, the problem I would love to highlight today is essentially students think math is useless after high school. Now, unfortunately, this is the reality. And some data to back this statement up. Essentially, around 60% of high school students don't strongly believe math is useful in real life. Additionally, students' confidence drop in math drops by over 10% during high school. Now, of course, this is a vital problem because if we allow students to continue on this mindset, on this pathway, we are setting up for failure. Because at the end of the day, every field in the top 10 most delved into career pathways after high school require math, whether it be medicine and calculus and statistics, whether it be engineering and solving various different pathways. It's a very vital problem that we need to tackle. Now, I'd like to hand it over to my peer.
I would like to talk a little bit about the underlying information when it comes to math. And so I'll share a little bit of background into sort of my experience in school. And the way that my school works is that you're able to accelerate math as early as middle school. But I realized that a lot of the acceleration sort of solidified after maybe 8th grade. So the students who have been accelerating math and have continuously improved and been top achievers, they sort of created like a little vacuum. So now there's students who are at the bottom, and even if they want to accelerate or put in more effort, they wouldn't be able to get any greater applications. And so the focus of our group was there's this very significant hurdle that we face when it comes to why are students not achieving math when they maybe could. And I talked to a lot of teachers around my school and my district, and the consensus is that this hurdle is very heavily tied to math identity. So how do you think about yourself in relation to math? Are you a math person? You're someone that hates math. Oh, I see that all the time. I hate math class. I don't want to go to my algebra class. But I think that there's a very strong psychological tie, and how well you achieve is very much based on how much you think you can achieve when you're in the classroom, or how much you think that you're able to apply math to your career. And so we talked about how I think it's like 94% of workers, of US workers, use math in their job in some sort of capacity. And yet the statement that I hear the most often is that I don't think I'll use calculus in my future out, or I won't touch algebra 2 in my future. And so we have to sort of tackle this idea that at some point throughout our high school and middle school career, students are believing that they will never use math again. And they also believe that if they're not a math person, they're less likely to go into a math-related career. And I also want to talk a little bit about the gender gap. 58% of bachelor's degrees in the United States are made up by women. But within the STEM sector, only about 25 to 35% of STEM degrees are women. And so there's a very significant gender sort of like facet of this, where a lot of women also believe that if they're not a math person, they cannot achieve. And I think that that's really important for us to tackle in our solution. And so I will hand it off to Peter Olivia. Thank you, Kayla. Next slide, please. All right, so as Adam mentioned before, the main problem that we identified is that students think that math is useless after high school. So our solution was to simply connect math to careers in classes. And the strategy that we used to outline this is to add career-connected math to the state's K through 8 model curriculum in order to inform students how every unit that they learn is actually tied to a real job that they could be interested in. So take healthcare, for example. If students are sitting in class learning about ratios and proportions and statistics or geometry, instead of them wondering, or kind of going to the conclusion of, I'm never going to use this isn't relevant to what I want to do in the future, we can show them how it is relevant to anything that they're really interested in. So in the healthcare field, doctors, nurses, and pharmacists, they're all using this type of math in their day-to-day jobs. So just having
or showing them how math is applied and what they are actually interested in. We're trying to eliminate that math person gap that Caleb was mentioning before in order to boost their confidence and strengthen math identities in students across Connecticut as a whole. Thank you. Next slide. So it seems that our slideshow has been actually updated, so this was supposed to be deleted, but next slide, please.
All right, that wraps it up. If you have questions, please feel free to shoot them at us. Great.
Before we move on to the next topic, any questions from board members?
Well, I really loved your presentation, especially when you brought up the gender gap as well as connecting math to careers. I think that's really important. I had a couple of questions for you. So you mentioned that you found math gaps within each class of schools, correct? Do you think there's any misclassification going on at any of those levels, where students may be putting in like too high of a level of class than they're supposed to be in? And two, you mentioned how disruption was also causing the math gap. So I was wondering, did you notice when you were interviewing teachers that there's more, that they observe more or less than certain levels of those math classes? And if there's any school policies that have contributed to?
I can take a little bit of first question, then I'll let everyone else sort of give their 2 cents as well. Something that I've noticed in the past couple of years at my school is that when we're like very stratified and very like cliquey with the way that our classes are arranged. And I'm sure that these people can attest to it as well. But what I mean by that is like the classes, the people that I've been taking classes with for the past couple of years have been almost the same. It's the same group of maybe 10 or so kids, and they are constantly in the same class. My grade has, I think, 44 new people. And so I believe that there's something that has to do with the way that like counselors recommend classes. And when I did a little bit more research into this, I noticed that it's this sort of like, I don't know, you can call it a sociological concept, but I think it's more of a like, this is the result. It's social inertia, and it's that sense that once you are in these stratified groups of people, it's very hard to move between the groups. So if, for example, I take a CC class or a college and career class, it takes a lot of guts to walk up to the counselor and say, I want to take an advanced or like college credit. And I think that part of it is due to the fact that the process for switching between course levels is so layered in bureaucracy, and it's very hard for a student to do that because we need a counselor recommendation, we need confirmation from your last year's teacher in order to switch these classes. So the social inertia portion of it is more than just policy. It's also like the culture. So how do you make up your school culture in a way that students find out hard to take classes? There's something about the energy of the classroom or the way that you teach that makes the advanced classes almost seem like VIP or makes them seem like exclusive. And I think that's something that we really have to, it's a much larger issue that deserves more attention. It's like, we have to think beyond the tangible policy of this and think beyond the numbers. There's like a very prominent cultural aspect in why students don't switch classes.
In younger grades, talking about 5th and 8th grade, and it also has to do with the culture because ever since we were middle schools and elementary schools, we've never thought of the idea of staying back. It was never an option teachers talked about or our counselors talked to us about it. It was like everyone was passing, whether we were getting good in math classes or not, you were just moving forward. But for the students that were ahead, like the 8 students I mentioned, they are labeled as tag students, as talented and gifted. They are put into their fire class because they're on fire, they're achieving all these things, while the other students that might be on the level where they're supposed to be, or they're genuinely struggling because they are not receiving the help, they are labeled as ice, they're stuck, they're frozen in their place. So I feel like it's also about the culture, and I feel like teachers just have gotten used to this system where it's like, let these students just keep on going, the next teacher will take care of them.
Yeah, I would definitely like to piggyback off of that. My little brother, for example, last year, unfortunately, he wasn't able to take honors classes, things of this nature. And to be quite frank, it was like fighting like up a hill. You know what I mean? It was truly a fight to get him into honors and AP level classes because first off, the teachers wouldn't recommend him for it, right? Number one. And his counselors also doubted him. Now, how do you expect students to grow? How do you expect them to reach the American dream if they're constantly being, doubted at a young age? So we had to genuinely fight for his place in honors and AP classes, and it's just so many other students. Like, I mean, thank God, I'm able to be like his mentor and help him out a lot. I was able to really push him, but many students, unfortunately, don't have that sort of mentor figure, someone who can push them, someone who truly, believes in them. And I would truly like to advocate for those type of students for sure, because I have firsthand experience with this type of scenario.
And there's also a lot of issues you have to consider, including race and actual poverty lines, because as we said, these school districts are underfunded and under-resourced, which therefore makes the students not really care about their education, which then leads to them not being able to get well-paying jobs, which leads them to not be able to leave the same school districts that didn't serve them right. And it's like a never-ending vicious cycle that never ends. That's why, like, a lot of those rates, other than the state average, a lot of the rates I demonstrated between race and poverty and language barriers are all sit around the same, because those communities are all embedded in one another, because they all stunt one another and then they never can improve or get any better. So we need to address these root causes, and that's why it's more about equitability, which means providing resources where they're needed rather than just giving everyone the same resources. Because in a system and areas that are systematically repressed and have been systematically stuck in these same places, they need more help to get out of these areas, and we're just not providing that for them.
Hello, thank you so much for your presentation. Again, math education equity is really important. I appreciate y'all bringing up this matter. So I again have two questions. The first one is about the gender gap in pursuing STEM careers. Second one is about the correct district block assessment. But my first question is, you mentioned that there is a lower percentage of women who go into STEM-related fields or get a master's in a STEM-related field. So I was wondering, as the Board of Education or independently in schools, what measures can we take to reduce that difference? And my second question is regarding the block assessment. Why specifically do you think, for example, some categories are increasing in percentage while other categories are decreasing a lot? Like, why is that such a huge shift? Why is that occurring?
Thanks so much for your question and for your interest in the gender gap for math. I'll start off by just like explaining a little bit of context too. For the most part, students or girls in elementary and middle school tend to outperform all the way up until middle school. And once they hit high school, there's a shift. Almost consistently across the board, after these students reach high school, boys tend to outperform. And my belief is that there's a very prominent like social reason behind this. And I think that the board should probably focus a little bit more on the sports that we give to women in STEM. And I think that a lot of it comes down to some of the subconscious factors. So representation. All of my math teachers growing up have been male. I can't name many female mathematicians. And I think that that is just an example of some of the subconscious like biases that we present. And throughout the transition between middle and high school, there's a lot of it's a rough time, guys. There's a lot of social changes and a lot of relationship and neurological changes. But I think at that time when you're so neuroplastic and you're so malleable, you have to really focus on making sure that middle school girls are able to see themselves in math leaders, whether that be engineers or astronauts, mathematicians in general, anyone in the STEM fields. I think that increasing that representation is one of the easiest and most direct ways that we can do it. And it's not hard to do. We can input just like a little finger in the curriculum to work or a certain dedicated week. Even I've seen some schools do that, but it's just like in my district, I haven't. So that's just sort of my thoughts on that. Thank you very much for the question.
Regarding your question about the block assessments, it all just goes back, as Kayla mentioned before, into math identity and how you see yourself as, like, at such a young age, people already determine themselves as, I'm a math person or I'm not a math person. And people are so quick to think about themselves into one category because, I think many, in my experience, I've always been taught math in just one strict way on a whiteboard or smartboard, and teachers aren't realizing that there are different type of learners. There's hands-on learners and audible learners, visual learners, and through that, students just pick up concepts faster. So the simple concepts are obviously going to come easily just by seeing it come into play, as well as exit tickets, the way they're given to students. I've seen in my personal experience in like middle school, it was only the basic skills that only got exit tickets, and the complex skills were only just given a test. And it really affected like, oh, once you get that grade from such a complex lesson, you're immediately downplaying yourself because it just messes up, like as Kayla mentioned, like your mentality is just automatically put into one of the two categories of I'm a math person or not. And in addition to that, in the exit tickets, like a lot of people, like you can work on them with your peers, while the test is just like individualistic, and math is both. You can do it with people and without people. And I think we need to stop putting that stigma and mindset that you need to do problems on your own. It's only about what you can solve and not what others can solve. Like teamwork is a thing. You're not going to be alone in the future. You're going to be working with others in college and your job. And I think it's really important that people realize that.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, to be quite frank, I feel like we kind of allow stagnancy in schools. We kind of allow comfort. And of course, we grow and we're uncomfortable. I mean, right now, my heart is beating. Like, I can feel it. You know what I mean? We always grow when we're uncomfortable. And I feel like we have to truly change the culture of schools to help students kind of open their eyes to understand that, you know, you have to become comfortable being uncomfortable. Like, dreams die when you're stagnant. So I feel like we can really open students' eyes, and we can change the culture, we can shift the mindset. And if we can, of course, do this, and of course, you guys are all here to help us out in doing this and changing the mindset of students in Connecticut and hopefully all over the US, I think we can certainly make a positive impact. Thank you.
Sorry, I just have one more thing to add. I'm sorry. We talked a lot about culture, like large scale culture change, but I think it's important to say that one of the simplest things you can do if you ever get the chance, I urge you, come to school with us. Sit in a classroom and you can see the girls use their hand like this, and you can see the guys use their hand like this. And I think there's a lot to learn from just sitting in a classroom with us. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you so much for your presentation. I'll just share a bit about my own personal background to give you context. I'm the anomaly in your situation in that I am a high school teacher. I teach physics and I have a degree in physics, but I very much understand what you're saying about gender gaps in math identity, because I was often the only woman in my class when I went through not only upper high school classes, like taking AP Calc, for example, in high school. My high school didn't offer AP any calculus, and I did have to go to a different high school in order to take it. I really applaud what you said about making career connections in the earlier grades. I think that is something that is very frequently overlooked. It's something that, as a high school teacher, I know we focus a lot in high school on college and career readiness, but I really love the idea that you presented about making those overt career connections into math in the earlier grades, particularly in upper elementary and middle school. What you said about social inertia and math identity really struck a nerve with me. That's one of my pet peeves, is grown-ups saying I'm not a math person. And the analogy that I often use is that as adults, young adults, older adults, we often will go out to a restaurant in a group and eat, and you'll ask somebody else to figure out the tip, or you'll figure out how much do I owe. I'm not really a math person, but we would never pass someone a menu and say, hey, I'm not really a reading person. Could you tell me what that dish is? And so, like, we have a systemic society cultural issue about a math person. And so I would just put a pitch to the adults in the room, mind your words about how we speak about math. I was also particularly struck in my question is about the leveling and sort of the getting stuck in an identified bubble or stratosphere. And I see that all the time as a high school teacher. So, you know, you can be in CP college prep classes or honors or AP track. I do happen to be that person that goes around and hunts for kids in my high school going, why, like, you got a really good score in your math SAT. Like, I look up their SAT score, like, why aren't you taking an AP science class? Like, you should be like, why are you in a CP algebra class? Why aren't you? But I understand that I'm the anomaly. I hear, Adam, what you said about the struggles with the systems that are in place in terms of seeking the ability to level up. So if you had the ability to, you had the magic wand to change your high school's policies around how kids get identified for certain levels or certain types of classes, what would you do? How would you change the system, particularly like 8th grade through 12th grade, to make it better for kids like your brother?
Dolly, that's quite the question. I like that. Okay. So how would I go about changing the system to ensure that kids can?
What would you want? What would you want? I mean, I heard what didn't work. So tell me what you think would work.
I think someone like you, to be quite frank, someone who can light a fire under someone. Because these kids, like, there's so many just gems in the rough, right? Diamonds, so many diamonds in the rough that you would never think to find. However, if, for example, like you said earlier, you go into classrooms, you kind of hunt for people who may have the better scores, who may be more interested in learning, and you could, like, I feel like just to put it, like, frankly, I would have people like you, maybe like 3, 4, 5 teachers, something along those lines, just people in general, to go to, like, maybe class to class, see who participates the most, see who has the best test scores, and, like, first off, understand their mindset, understand why they're not pushing themselves to go maybe to the higher math class, higher reading class, things of that nature, understand the why behind it, and then light a fire to them. Because, of course, you know, we all like encouragement, but some kids, like, truly need it. Some people may not have the parental figures to push them to, you know, achieve the highest levels of success. However, if we can have maybe dedicated people, maybe teachers, maybe, like, I know the staffing needs like once a month or something along those lines. We choose 2 or 3 teachers per department to go into classrooms, go into test score analysis to see which kids could maybe be, you know, talked to and spoken to and pushed essentially to achieve greatness. I think that would be something very well. Because, like, the human connection, the interaction, speaking to someone, understanding their mindset, I think it really, like, open the kids' eyes instead of just, oh, my test score is high, hooray. Like, you know what I mean? I think that human connection is really part of it.
I'm going to suggest that to my high school principal. Thank you.
Yeah. You know, and just to follow up on that a little bit too, I think, you know, earlier you spoke about SBAC scores and test scores and recognizing some of the high test scores. So often students are never are talked to about a certain score. They got the score, but they might not know how exceptional that score is. And I think that's very important that is looked into. I mean, a lot of schools have intervention classes or math lab classes or reading, you know, and it might come in. You know, look how far you got in this score. And I think students understanding scores better than you did it or you didn't is really beneficial, especially in our younger years. I mean, they get these things, they get them in the mail, but we've learned through a lot of districts and schools that there's never a conversation about those scores. Sometimes the parent will ask, well, what does this mean? Where does he land according to everybody else? But I think that's important, that if the student knows, you actually sit with the student and almost make it a competition. Because we know when it comes to SBAC, especially as SBAC gets to the 8th grade, they don't want to do it anymore. It is not important to them. It's important to everybody around them, their teachers, their school, their superintendent. But the kid taking the test is really like, I got with us back at this point. But I think if they looked at it as, you're right there, let's see if you can get here, and almost make it a competition, because they love competition. They just love that. So I just wanted to say that, because there's so much of, when we talk about scores, I think we have to spend more time talking with our students about their scores, and not just they need to do better where they are. and just get them, like, you did so well. It's nice now to see a lot of our schools do not put, your top group in middle school is your algebra group, because we learned that you could be excellent in math, not so much maybe in English. And so to put those two students together, we've learned that. We now have to learn it with math too. That it's just, you just don't, put all that. They need to be able to choose where they land. And I love the part about the careers, attaching careers. And the early that can happen, because elementary children would not know. Like, if thinking, I want to be a doctor, they might not know how important math is to get there. You could be a doctor, you could be a landscaper, you're going to need to know math. And it's, and I think that's important that we really push that at an early age.
So,
Commissioner.
I know your colleagues are waiting to present for us AI. I just so appreciate your voice in this space and really things that you've given us to think about. I know Irene Parisa, who you worked with, who is a curriculum czar, I'm sure is thinking about some of what you've mentioned, but should know for this board that this past session, we did have legislation passed that the department will be working to redesign high school math pathways. That was in the governor's budget proposal, but work that we now need to do. And really take a look at professional development providers that's going to do high quality math instruction to support our educators and more. So just know it is a focus for us for the work that's to be done. The other thing I'd say though, and you've uncovered some really key things that we need to think about climate and culture and mindset in this space, which you all spoke to. I kind of geek out on space. And so, our Artemis 2 going to space was a big deal for me. I spent all my time watching what was going on there. But, it was so important to then take a breather to look back at what they call women mathematicians who pioneered the space race. Learning all of that and being excited about it and be able to share that with our students. The point that you made about, who your teachers are and what's going on. And so we will endeavor to continue to do that and to work with our school districts in that space. But thank you so much for what you've offered here. Don't believe that it's not heard in how we need to move forward and to support the work that you're doing, and that your voices will be those in leadership not too long from now, that will make sure that we're not just talking. When we talk about equitable access to all our students, regardless of where they are in the state, we've uncovered some of those kinds of things that happen when either by your parents or how you show up, that folks think you shouldn't be there. And I want to remind the board as well that we do have a math position statement that really talks about math identities. And some of the things that you've called out is the work that this board has done. So we will certainly keep you posted. But thank you so much for your voice in the room today.
Talk about diamonds in the rough. Here we go. So thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you very much. Okay, as we transition, these scholars will go out, we'll bring in the group to artificial intelligence. I did just want to share that our partnership with CAP and to do this work is so important and critical. And these themes were brought forward by the commissioner with the students who really dive deep and investigate. So I appreciate all of her work, the partnership with CAS and the students. Many of them are graduating, but I already asked, can I call some of them back as we continue to do this work related to the new statute. So we'll now bring in the next group where artificial intelligence was the other focus, and the two split up based on passion and interest. And I'm sure they can just do this one.
Irene, is Teresa Frank, is she here?
She is. She's just helping the students come in. We'll bring them in so that we can.
Okay, because I do want to share something with her. She helped me a great deal, as you know, with NASB's.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll bring them in.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair, all I could think of was this would be a great cohort to work with Ajit on some things, because the data analysis they did was just terrific.
It really was.
Thank you. Okay. Anyone can start and introduce.
Hi, we are part of the SASE group as well, and we're talking about artificial intelligence in Connecticut education and the positives and negatives we see. What changes we think should be possibly made. And I'm Ella Bodner from Daniel Hand High School in Madison, and I'm on the board there.
I'm Sierra Becca from Weston High School.
I'm Michaela Fletcher from Harvard Public High School.
I'm Victoria Melvin from Farmington High School.
I'm Edgemont Cranston from Starford High School.
I'm Krithi Jalabergam, also from Farmington High School.
I'm Ainsley Renowski from Lyme High School. Okay, next slide, please. So we have broken down our presentation into a couple of subgroups. Our first one being academic integrity and ethics, and then our next one being AI for learning, and then future readiness, personalization, and then our final proposal on what changes we believe should be. Next slide, please.
So to give you all a little bit of an overview of what our AI committee has done this past year as part of the State Student Advisory Council, we had to do a lot of research, obviously, since AI is a very new concept and topic, especially within K-12 schools. And so one of the first things that we did is review our own district policy. So we all, obviously the state board comes from students across the entire state, and we believe that our schools are very diverse within itself. And so by looking into our current policies, we're able to get a better insight into what current administrators and teachers believe regarding AI and how it will be used throughout the curriculum to kind of give us a basis for the current thoughts around it. The next thing that we looked into was the AI education pilot program that was done with around 8 schools in Connecticut this past year. And so they used a couple different platforms such as Magic School AI in order to evaluate how it could be used potentially to improve schooling within education. And then the next thing that we did is we wanted to obviously reach out to teachers. These are the people who obviously are talking with students, meeting with them every single day. And so their input was very valued by our group. So we interviewed and collected data from around 100 teachers across the state. And this was anonymous teacher feedback so that we could get their real thoughts and opinions to see what we could do as a state board to see how we can make it the best possible adjustment and proposal to be implemented. And then the last thing that we did was identifying the root cause. I know that AI usage is definitely very prevalent within high school and college, and that's kind of what you think of when you think of AI in education. It's definitely those upper grade levels. But through kind of our research and interviewing, we noticed that the root cause actually doesn't necessarily start in high school, but it really comes down to even elementary and middle school, because this is when kids are definitely the most impressionable. And seeing a new full AI tool that can do all your work for you is definitely a lot more appealing on the younger age. And so building these habits young does definitely impact the future. And that's something we'll get into later on the presentation. Next slide, please.
So one thing that we really tried to look through during our research was just in general how it was increasing, how the usage was increasing. And we pulled some key stats from our research. So 83% of K through 12 teachers reported using generative AI in school in 2024, which was a 32% increase from the previous year. It's also noted that 59% of K through 12 teachers are certain that at least one of their students is using AI in the classroom. So we really just during our research process realized that the growth is exponential and that there does need to be something done about it. So we decided that our focus was going to be like geared toward like properly educating students on AI literacy to foster environments where both teachers and students work together to use it for meaningful academic growth. Next slide.
In subgroup 1 of the larger AI group, we kind of focused on the ethics of AI and how to preserve academic integrity in the classroom in the face of this new tool. So we focused on 3 main questions, which were how should we define cheating by using AI? What types of assignments should allow the use of AI and to what extent? And then finally, how does using AI to assist with schoolwork impact the learning process for students?
Next slide, please. So artificial intelligence is not necessarily a negative thing we've come to terms with. And there's actually many beneficial parts of it for learning for students. It is a great tool for students to utilize without being at risk for plagiarisms, which that has been the biggest concern of AI in schools. We realize that it is great for test preparation, editing, work, and then different types, and it also works for different types of learning styles. So for studying, it's very good because it can create interactive methods such as games. It also generates practice questions that then can give you an immediate response where it can either tell you, no, this is incorrect, this is actually how you do it, or it can break it down and help you kind of go through the entire thing, which is great for students that can't work with tutors and can't always be with their teachers asking questions, especially so at home. This is a great tool and source. So it's also great for editing, as I was saying, so it can correct grammar and spelling that students can struggle with, and then it can also help students identify what areas they might be struggling with so they can in the future realize what they're doing and do better with that. It also is great for an explanation of curriculum and assignments. So it can accommodate all types of learning styles by breaking things down for people that might. Next slide, please. So for the next group, focusing on future readiness, we kind of defined it slightly differently. So future readiness for our purposes was preparing youth for higher education and employment. So definitely, as I mentioned previously, the root of the problem really starts in elementary school when students are very impressionable, and having access to all of these amazing tools definitely does cause some detriment to their future education. So that could be going into high school and dealing with things like college applications, more rigorous schoolwork, National Honor Society applications. There's just a plethora of things that happen in high school that you need a strong foundational writing and critical thinking skill to be successful at. But then that also moves into college when the impacts of using AI are a lot more detrimental to the student body. And then obviously into careers. I think all of us here have definitely heard of how some career or another have been impacted by AI right now and how it will be impacted definitely within the next 5 to 10 years. And so, yeah, students as early as elementary school have been seen using AI. I think one of the anecdotes that we found through our research was third grade was one many students were using AI. And just because of how accessible it is and how popularized it is through social media, which is something that younger students have increasingly more access to, it can definitely, the spread of it is rapidly increasing. And so these problems are seen throughout all age groups and diverse communities with AI, but like Ella previously mentioned, there are some benefits to it. So the thing with artificial intelligence in K through 12 education is really finding a good common ground between balancing the costs and also the benefits. Next slide, please.
So we use a Google form that we basically sent it out to all of our teachers throughout many districts all over Connecticut to just kind of identify where AI was being used in classrooms. As we all know, it is being used all over the state for many different things. We found that 91 out of 108 teachers are using AI in their classrooms. And it's not limited to newer teachers, and about 67% of our teachers that responded have been teaching for more than 15 years. And the major concerns that they were facing using it is that there's a loss of critical thinking and creativity with it. There's an over-reliance on AI. There's a decline in students' writing skills. And there's questions that they have on the ethical boundaries of AI, of what's good and what's bad. And the real challenge that they're facing is how to teach students to use it responsibly. And we want to be able to allow students and educators to work with AI rather than working against.
So some of our ideas for increasing future readiness regarding AI in K-12 education kind of surrounded multiple different topics. So for example, implementing AI education into the curriculum is definitely a very obvious one. And as you've seen by the previous slide statistics, it's something that teachers across the state are already starting to do. And so that can come with increased teacher training or education on the topic as to how it can be used how students can use it within education, because AI, whether we like it or not, is going to be a part of the future. And so it's going to be a very uphill battle if we fight against it. And so really embracing it and learning how to use it efficiently and effectively without the loss of critical thinking skills is a really pivotal, especially in this time. And so in the same nature, emphasizing interconnected relationships with AI in different content areas and addressing the implications to use it in these areas. So using artificial intelligence for math or STEM related things is definitely very different from how it could be used within humanities. And so that's something that definitely needs to be addressed, because for a lot of impressionable students, it can all seem one and the same, when in reality, there's a lot of differences that can occur within that. As well as AI career-specific days. So as we mentioned previously, using artificial intelligence throughout your K-12 education or even in college is severely going to impact your employment opportunities or the job that you would like to seek out in the future. And so having more information surrounding that while you're in your formative years and have more flexibility within deciding what career path you'd like to go down is definitely very impactful for students, and something that can help them achieve a more realistic goal towards their future regarding how artificial intelligence has been impacting that. And of course, finding the root of the problem, like we mentioned previously, definitely targeting elementary and middle school students, because they're the people who are being exposed to it probably first as they move on through their K-12 education. So teaching them the rights and wrongs of using AI is definitely the best way to mitigate it for future concerns. Next slide, please.
We also looked through all the different AI platforms that students and schools are using, and we determined that even though students might be using ChatGPT on the side and at home, there's a lot of schools that are using chatbots like Notebook LM, Magic School AI, and Smart Sparrow. And those programs are very different and are already backed by many schools in the state, which these programs help schools monitor how students are using AI while they are allowed to use AI.
We also determined that there needs to be a universal guideline set for all students on how to personalize their AI experience with chatbots. And these elements of personalization include, but are not limited to, building study material, providing specific tailored feedback, and guides to student growth, whatever academic setting. Next slide, please.
So while we determined that students definitely need direction with using AI chatbots, the other side of like personalization is how students actually use the chatbots. So we dug into Notebook LM, which is a specific chatbot, and at my school we use it. On the slide you can kind of see part of the chat that I started, but I'm able to input my rubric for an assignment, my paper, and then the assignment details. And this platform pulls specifically from the sources I upload to then provide me specific feedback. And we determined that personalization is important because in a lot of AI tools, especially open forums of AI, information is being pulled from all the corners of the internet, and unsolicited advice or information might be added to a project. But in terms of like actually embracing AI while moving forward in education, we're suggesting that closed platforms such as Notebook LM are part of the step forward, because more specific feedback can be provided, especially based on assignments in a classroom setting. This paper, I asked specific questions like, how can I improve my thesis? And they gave me tailored feedback based on the guidelines of my paper, which were provided by my teacher. Similarly, I was able to upload my note sheet, and the chatbot assessed my notes and my paper and was able to provide me feedback for where I could include more of my notes in my paper and where I was like lacking notes. It didn't pull notes from the internet for me to add, but it offered me broad but still pointed feedback of where to go next. And as like a group, we like this approach because it's not thinking for me. but giving me direction to then go out and research more and to think more on my own. But still, it offers that support for students who might not have access, again, to tutors all the time or teachers all the time, or maybe they don't have parents at home that can guide them in the right way. So that's kind of our take on the personalization aspect, where there's definitely more room to grow and a lot of students can have access to this. We just need to make it statewide. Next slide. So our overall proposal to you all, is something that we talked about throughout our presentation, is that we want to further educate the younger generation, specifically elementary students, on AI usage and what is good and what is bad and how it should be used in good ways rather than bad, so that we can further implement our different ideas of how we want to use it, so that they're not using it in the wrong ways, growing up throughout their schooling experience, using it in the wrong ways so that it doesn't create bad habits. And we want to show them what's helpful uses and what's harmful uses. And attached in the slideshow, we have linked a presentation that we created that would be presented to elementary students that is tailored to them for what AI is and how it should be used. And just like Victoria mentioned, with just creating different platforms and boundaries for AI for students and all of us, it's really a lot of it.
Well, you picked a wonderful topic to present to us today, one that we've been certainly talking about quite a bit, and so is the entire country. I love the fact that your presentation is based on elementary, because that's most important. I think when we look back at cell phones in schools, one-on-one devices in schools, the biggest error that was probably made is that we just didn't teach them the correct ways to use things. AI is with us, and it is, it's the responsibility of our schools to make sure that they're educated early and educated correctly and responsibly. So thank you for that. Board members, I'm sure you have some questions. Smart.
Hello, thank you so much for your presentation. So for some background, I go to South Windsor High School, and that school is one of the pilot programs for AI from out of school AI. So we're a big AI school. For example, teachers use Notebook LM to help us learn during our humanities classes. And I believe that AI is very important to both understand how to use it appropriately, but also its limitations. So I have a question for you all, specifically for unmonitored AI chatbots, for example, ChatGPT or Claude. I see students or peers in my school who use those unmonitored chatbots for assignments. They don't perform as well as students who don't or use monitored chatbots for tests, the performance of tests. So my question to you is, how could we encourage students to not use those unmonitored chatbots for full completion of class assignments, and to rather pivot to those monitored chatbots like Notebook LM or Magic School AI?
Yeah, so I think definitely from my personal experience, I really didn't know that platforms such as Notebook LM or Magic School AI really existed until we started looking into this topic. And so for a student, being like on the SASE board, just think about the millions of students or hundreds of thousands of students across the state who definitely don't know about it either. And so that really comes back to our initial proposal of educating students on the proper uses of AI and also the better ways to have better results. So I think one of the things that sticks with students, and I think generally most people, is really statistics, right? And so if students are exposed to the percentage of people who maybe use unmoderated chatbots, like you were mentioning, and their success within education versus students who use more modern platforms that are kind of more adaptive to K through 12 education, then seeing the stark contrast in results and success is definitely an indicator to especially high achieving students or students who have some kind of plan for their future, want to go into college, want to get a career in the future, to kind of see those results a little bit more clearly.
As a high school teacher, I'm well aware that you all navigate this land much better than we do. So given that we're talking about being to educate kids. Obviously, first we need to educate people that are doing the education. So from your personal experiences that you have in high school, what do you wish your teachers knew how to do with AI? That maybe they don't, or maybe only a pocket of people in your schools know how to do, but you wish all of my teachers knew how to do this. Can you give me some examples?
For me personally, I have a few teachers that will use AI, whether it's Notebook LM or Google Gemini is actually one that's very popular among my teachers. They will use them to create like quizzes and games that they'll then post on like our Google Classroom for us to use like interactively. So it can either be something that can give you a game to play or it can make you a quiz. It can also break down the individual steps of how to do specific things. However, not all of my teachers know like that these tools exist and they see AI as just being something that will do the work for us and is bad. However, the teachers that really embrace it and give it as like a resource for us is something that I know a lot of other students also really appreciate. So I guess just using it in a way that can give us lots of like studying tools and things like that, and like almost giving us like a teacher at home is something that would be very beneficial for students, and for teachers to know that they can even gain to do.
Something that I think would be really good for teachers to kind of educate students on. Our school has been kind of embracing this idea, but it's teaching teachers how to tell students about like creating the right type of prompt for AI and ensuring that AI can be the most successful that you can make it based on the prompt that you would use. And a lot of students just use AI, even if they're using the correct platform, just really like conversing with it. That might not be the most efficient way to get the results they want. So I think it'd be good for teachers to talk to students about using the correct wording to get the correct type of feedback.
Any other members? Dr. Levis or Dr. Zimmerman? Whoever would like to go first.
I can start. Thank you very much for your presentation. I just wanted to say that I really appreciated your presentation on this timely topic. As a teacher who's currently redesigning his whole course around the use of AI, I found your insights very valuable, and so I'll try to incorporate them as we move forward. And we're dealing with this, and it's great to get your perspective on it. So thank you very much.
Dr. Levis?
Again, thank you so much for this data that you provided. It's very interesting. And it's a topic that we have been talking about. And I used to be a high school principal. And my question to you is, AI is important and it's not going to go away, but it cannot take the place of a human being. So how do you address social interaction and balancing in schools? Because as human beings, we are socially bound. And how do you balance in schools AI and dealing socially and helping each other in the classroom? Do you understand what I'm
I think for my school personally, a big thing that we do is you ask like the person next to you or your peer first before you go to anything else. So I know for our ECE American Society class, our teachers have us like when a question is really difficult, she has us talk to our peers and try to figure it out as a group first before we move on to asking her, and then the last step is AI. So I think having AI there as like a last step kind of thing helps with the social interaction part, and it helps you, I guess, as a group go through the question and try to figure it out for yourself first before you see like alternative guidance.
Just to add on at Farmington, we have something similar where classes that have opportunities and time built in for AI, make it clear when it's acceptable to be using a platform and when it is like time for student interaction. Teachers do a really good job of laying out like our classes and like our agendas for the day. And it's very clear as a student when, okay, this time is for student interaction, like especially when we're writing big papers, we have a lot of peer feedback days. So we have specific days that are dedicated to peer feedback. But then on the other hand, we have specific days dedicated to AI feedback days. So I think that a clear separation of like when AI is acceptable and when it's not is also useful for students. So there's no like blending and in between. And so the AI usage doesn't fully take over from the peer side because it is easier to just type in a prompt and sometimes like have a like that back and forth conversation. But I think the distinction of like the times is helpful.
Just to add on to that, I think looking at this teacher survey data that we found from, that we mentioned through the presentation, a lot of what they said is that when they did use AI, that 91 teachers that did decide to use it in their classrooms mainly used it for assignments, not necessarily like in school activities. So, and I think as a student, seeing my peers around, that's when AI usage is definitely probably most efficient and effective. Using it at home, like somewhat like we've mentioned throughout the presentation, is like a home tutor or something to help you out with your assignments when you're at home. And so I think that the balance between socializing in school and getting the opportunity to build your collaborative skills within your classmates, your peers, your teachers, I think that's something that's definitely still valued within education, as a lot more students are more inclined to use it when they don't know how to approach something or they want to use it on an assignment, which obviously isn't the proper way to use it, but unfortunately, because of the lack of education, that's what a lot of students have come to.
Adding on, I think from my experiences, the time when my school, they use AI the most is when can't contact a friend because they're sleeping, and that's the time when like we use it the most is when they're on like a time crunch and they can't ask someone socially. But in school, especially in my school, we do value social interaction. A lot of us don't, because like AI can like explain things, but teachers are still valued as kind of the head explainer of things. So students still, I feel like learning from teachers better than learning everything by themselves.
Yeah, because ultimately your teachers are the one who are grading the assignment and not AI. So no matter what anyone tells you, get a bad grade. It's fun.
Dr. Pick on AI is not coming to this job.
You don't know that they're very good at AI. Question I have is, do you find that your teachers are teaching use of AI for critical reasoning? Because I mean, I've used AI not that frequently, where I put in information and the information came back. I actually know not to be accurate. So, everything on the internet, they hear it, they see it, I read it, it must be true. Our teachers pointing out structurally critical thinking on how to analyze something just because the answer from AI is real, is it not?
Yeah, I have a personal experience with this actually. In our French class, my teacher, she did a really good example for us where she asked ChatGPT to do a summary of a movie that we watched, and it gave us a summary, and then we all wrote our own summaries and we compared it to the one that AI wrote. And AI was pulling information from the internet that was not true to the movie at all. And a lot of it was false information compared to the ones that we wrote, which were actually correct. And that was just really important for us. And also I know within our district, we have professional development days for our teachers where all of our teachers are going through different AI workshops where they're being educated on how to use AI in their classrooms, which is very important because then they're also telling us. And I know in my English classes, we are told that we can use it to give feedback, but not to write our essays for us, which I think is really important. That teachers are explaining when we can use it and when it's not going to be accepted. And also on a lot of our rubrics and assignments that do not use AI or AI is accepted. And also
on the STEM side of things. It's really great to explain things for us, like we've mentioned before, but when we don't have that teacher connection that we can have at night at 10 p.m. when we're trying to do our homework. But I think teachers, especially in my district, are teaching when we can use it and when it's going to be wrong versus when we can use it.
Sure.
Thank you very much, and it's so great for this presentation that you've shared with us, and kind of zooming out, and I don't know if you all, board members are aware that yesterday, Governor Lamont signed Public Act 2615, which is legislation establishing youth online safety protections and regulations over artificial intelligence. So this is for our state, and it's interesting because a part of it is combating youth social media addiction. So there's some laws about that, but the one that's really interesting to me is state regulations of artificial intelligence, and it's about those regulators of chatbots that require them to make sure that they're detecting suicidal ideations, indication of self-harm, and having protocols as to how to respond with appropriate resources. And so I just think it's interesting that you should know that the adults around you are trying to look out for protections for you. And I know that is same in the classroom as well. And so just wanted to put that in the space, but really appreciate your presentation, what you're experiencing. Again, I know Irene, got information from that and from the pilots that we've done to allow us as we look at digital literacy and safety and how to use this new tool safely, really important because I think it evolves, it's not going away. So we need to get smarter so that we can help to make sure that you are supported. So thank you. I want to appreciate Sharice who's in the room. And if you want to stand, Sharice, she does this work. Always reach out every year and said, I've got this really eager, awesome group of students. What's the topic that we should be exploring? And then we get this at the end, which is really great. So thank you for all that work. And Irene, again, thank you for shepherding this through the process. So
I'd like to follow up on that. Sharice, finally, we get to meet each other. I reached out to Sharice, almost 2 years ago now? Because this council came up in our NASB discussions about you. And NASB is the National Association of Board of Eds. So it's Board of Educations across the country. So I reached out to Sharice. She was great to give me some information about how you're selected, how you get on this council, what does the council do. Earlier, I had said in the Northeast, we had a lot of discussion about our student members on the board. And at that time, Sharice had given me all this information. I passed it out and it went to Montana, Texas, Delaware, all these states that were asking about your council. So I can't wait until I can send this one to the NASB office to let them know this is this year's student council presentation. Because there are a lot of people across the country are wondering how does Connecticut have this in place? What do they talk about? And I find it very interesting that both of the topics that all of you did were part of the governor's plan, signing into legislation just recently. So you're right on the correct topics and you couldn't have picked better ones. So I thank both groups, your director, Irene, for this wonderful. This is always the presentation we look forward to each year. So thank you very much. It was excellent.
Thank you so much for giving us your time. We're really excited to present to you all today. So have a great rest of your day.
if you can get out there quickly, I gotta come on and take a picture, of course, with all of you. So that'd be great.
Us, because you're up next to go to the picture. Right back. Yes. Two. Yes. Myself. That's right.
Too important things that they've said. Where I want to go.
Yeah.
That is true.
With us.
I mean,
That's really super.
I
No, that's not even what. That's what I'm saying is
Yeah, actually, our
It's gonna be like.
Our house was good. Everything going around.
But for the rest of us.
That was your trip. It's like.
Do you?
And resources, that's just.
These colleges we've talked about, talked to that I don't know everyone's runs. I guess they'll leave with it.
That's a history. It's amazing. Our oldest thing. Anyone fighting in the when people.
Okay, we will resume our regular agenda now, and it is the report of Commissioner. Oh.
You got nobody.
I'm gonna pause a little bit. I didn't even look up.
Oh, yeah, I know. I remember driving in those days, we didn't have on our course.
Oh, no. I think we all feel like it.
Oh. So much. Same eyes. Yes. Education, I was the school, they would. It's. Yes.
Wow. Yeah. Okay, now we're all back. And we will move on to the commissioners period.
Thank you very much. Vice Chair Bennett. And our board members, we are in June. That means that we are also winding down and closing out the school year. I have my report in your packet. As always, the front matter is the reminder of our state board plan. And also our strategic areas that we focus areas that we. I wanted to pause on that just for a moment. Include students who are present and engaged is one of our strategic areas because you know that attendance is a precursor to engagement, which is a precursor to learning. And we want to take this time as a shout out to our districts, families, students, and community partners. As this past April, we reported our lowest unpassment rate on record for this supporting school year. Rates dropped from 17.2% in March to 16.7% in April. And I know we use percentages, but these are students attending school more regularly with attendance gains across nearly all our students. So we're encouraging folks, so let's finish the year strong. That we're keeping our fingers crossed that we can finish the year lower than we did in the previous year. But just really wanted to pause to share that information. On our next slide, we have our traditional enrollment data. That's not changing. That is there. for us. I use this, you should know, everywhere I go, I'm always using this information. Remind us of our student that we have. Looking at, just highlighting for you under our equitable access to education priority area, that the department released a high quality special education incentive grant program for local and regional boards of education to support in districts regional special education programming and services for students with disabilities. This is funding that we received in the budget. It's $18.9 million, 8.9 million in programming and 10 million in capital improvement. And what that really means is we heard loud and clear from superintendents about the need to work together in some cases to try to bring back students who are outplaced, special education students back into district. And this board, this was one of the expansion item proposals forward that was picked up and it was in the budget. And so we're now deploying that application. This past week, along with the talent office, we met with the Advisory Council for Teacher Professional Standards and the Administrative Professional Standards to discuss just updates that we have. And there's a picture on the screen of all those who were in the room with us to talk about basic updates and recruitment and retention efforts that is going on. But if you recall that you accepted those two reports a couple of months ago, and this was our in-person meeting. And as you can see on the screen, a big thank you to Sharon Fuller. Is Sharon in the room? Yep, Sharon is in the room waving at us for the work that she does. They called her out in the meeting as well and thanking her for her being a great representative for both councils. So we were able to do that. Safe and healthy learning environments priority, just calling out for you that we're in the mode again of putting out applications to our districts. One of them is the 21st Century Community Learning Center, that's federal funding for after school. And that is out there for districts to apply for funding as well. And additionally, we have $7 million in your state budget an appropriation for the learner engagement and attendance program, so the LEAP program that we lean upon to support the improvement in attendance. And we do have one of only a couple of states, actually a state line item in its budget to support attendance. So we're really pleased to be able to have that we can deploy for the school year. As Vice Chair Bennett mentioned this morning, that we have 6 schools in the state that's been selected for the 2026 Connecticut Blue Ribbon Schools Recognition Program. Hope you can join us in West Hartford. And the schools are Grable Elementary School in Oxford, Nathan Hill School in Meriden, New Lebanon School in Greenwich, Richfield High School in Richfield, Webster Hill School in West Hartford, and Western Connecticut Academy of International Studies Elementary Magnet School in Danbury. Very pleased to see we have Blue Ribbon School in Alliance districts in our state, which we're also pleased. So hopefully, I think we sent information out so you can register and that we can, hopefully you can join us in West Hartford for that recognition program. In your supplemental packet today, you'll see a document. It's CSDE initiatives, partnerships, and resources to inform the Connecticut Career Pathways Commission document. We've had our first meeting, Vice Chair is a part of that commission. And subsequent to that meeting, we really thought it was important that we put in one place all the initiatives. You've heard some of it here at the board meeting, but wanted commission members to have this digest of the work that has been occurring, impacts that we've been seeing, because a part of the commission's efforts is to level up or to scale some of the work that is happening. So it was really important for us to share what is actually happening, which the upcoming meeting is what is called discovery. And again, it is learning about what is happening across not only the departments and districts, but higher ed institutions and others as well. So that commission can work together to scale the work and to develop a really thoughtful, implementable and sustainable plan. Internally, we came together for an in-person all-staff meeting You should know that the basis of the work that we did together was looking at our state board comprehensive plan and the 7 focus areas, and to get all the voices across the agency, but we've not been together in one space for quite some time, and folks, it was really awesome for folks to be together in that space. Especially, I think in that room, we had like 52 new staff members. Those of you who've been on the board knew, a few years ago, we were truly struggling with our internal capacity, and it took us a while. But by the time we got together, we had 52, and I think this past week we're about up to 53 new members that we've added to the agency. So you can imagine how important it was just for people to be in the same space together and to meet each other outside of a screen, which is really wonderful. I was able to join for statewide presentations, Congressman Joe Courtney, Dr. Pritchard, who is not here today, members of the United States military and electric boat leadership to give remarks. Their 5th annual signing day. More than 300 students, I shook all their hands, came across the stage from over 50 schools that we have and from neighboring states, accepting job offers at ED. And it was really just awesome as these students got their art hats and really so that they can join a growing workforce. And we'll be doing some follow-up there so we can learn exactly what is occurring and how does the parent, right, after they get into that program, and how can we continue to help to augment that as well. I wanted to share, I believe, Irene, if you're still in the space with us, just to talk a little bit about our Connecticut Curriculum Teacher Leader Fellowship that ended. I think we have a picture. We've probably hear about what we've accomplished and where we go from here. So I've invited Irene just to join us to speak briefly about that.
Thank you, Commissioner. As you know, any chance to talk about curriculum, I will take it. So we have it. So yes, we have come to the last session, which was Module 6 on Thursday, May 28th. If you can just go back this slide, thank you. So we convened our Connecticut, again, recognized by their superintendent district leaders. These are teacher leaders for curriculum that really have a passion for curriculum. And we came together to really put their vision in motion. So they had to come with their vision for curriculum at the local level, what they were going to do to make change in their district. And so we even do a vision board. So it really was like a capstone for curriculum vision boards. And we had 46 teams come together, create their vision board on the spot. We gave them 30 minutes to do it. They came prepared, they had art supplies, and we were in 3 different cycles of a gallery walk in at 450 here in different buildings. And the feedback that we received from the end of survey of the event is just the collaboration with other districts was so incredibly powerful, making their vision visible to others and getting feedback in the moment that they can actually transfer when they went back to district. And just let's keep this going. We have to continue to collaborate. So these are those that attended, they received their certificate, and these are just some examples of the vision boards, which you can see that very thoughtful. It is about systems that they're putting in place locally and refining policy, or even just creating policy that didn't even exist before. And based on our toolkit that we've provided, they're able to do this, and they really felt empowered. I really do think that we've now repositioned the State Department of Education with the Commissioner's leadership and the support from Dr. Hughes, that we are central to coming to us first about support for curriculum design and development. And I think that's really important with our tools. So yeah, we're going to do this again. We're going to have another wave of curriculum fellows, and we hope to connect wave 1 and wave 2 because that's what they want more of. And they said we have to get out of our bubble so that we can see what others are doing, because you know what, it's the same conversation, it's the same challenges, regardless of where we're learning. So thank you again, Commissioner, for letting me share.
You're welcome. Thank you. So those are the high-level updates that I wanted to share, and now we'll go to some updates for Hartford, Bridgeport, and Springfield Education in that order. I have to change to join the table. before I go there, just for the board, you don't yet have the invites in your inbox for the Blue Ribbon Commission. I'm sorry, the Blue Ribbon Schools Recognition, so you will get that today. All right, well, let's start with Harper's presentation, and the update is in your supplemental packet if you want to pull that out.
Good morning, everybody. It's good to see you all again today. I know that you'll be breaking for lunch. I will not be going to so I'll be very quick. Quickly, on April 17th, the agency entered into a contract with Liston Larson LLP. Conduct a compilation of forecasted statement of revenues and expenditures, which is phase one of the contract, followed by a forensic audit of HPS's fiscal year 24, 25, and 26 budgets, which comprises phase two of this project. The CLA compilation of forecasted statement of revenues and expenditures, that's a mouthful, report and management letter is included in your packets that Commissioner mentioned. Phase two, the forensic audit, will begin this Friday, June 5th, and continue through August 2026. Very briefly, as you will see, the CLA report has concluded that the $22 million deficit originally reported by HPS is a result of three major areas, really. An inaccurate estimate of a 6% vacancy rate. It was actually lower. They hired more than they had estimated by half. As a matter of fact, the vacancy rate ended up being 3%. They also hired staff at a higher salary than what was budgeted. So as vacancies came up, they brought new folks in, but hired them at a much higher rate, which comprised a large deficit. And also, when projecting their budget, they assumed a flat enrollment, which impacted revenue. Of course, enrollment declined, and then so did associated grades based on student population also declined. CLA found that the actual deficit was about 33% higher than that. It was 29.5 million as of April. And the difference is that HPS did not include the cost for part-time hourly employees. They did not realize $3 million from the city from a shared services agreement. And they under budgeted their fiscal year 26 benefit expenditures. And that's the difference between the reported 22 and the actual 29.5 that CLA found. The CLA also identified some concerns around billing of special education costs to HPS for resident students attending out of district choice programs. So that's just a really high level summary of their findings. I'd encourage you to take a look at their management letter. You also have the longer report. After to answer any questions, before moving on.
Zimmerman.
Sorry, let me get, thank you. You guys hear me now, right? That moment that clicks in is gratifying. Thanks. Thank you. That we introduced. So I appreciate the sort of breakdown. I appreciate that you guys provided the report from the auditing firm. That was good. Helpful to understand, how we arrived at these numbers. I guess just for context, on the one hand, obviously you want an accurate estimate of your own finances, and it's best that that estimate is accurate, to the dollar. At the same time, projections are projections, and we ask our districts to do a lot. It's hard to ask them to predict the future. These budgets kind of evolve over the school year. And I guess I'm just curious, what your perspective is on how common it is that these kind of provisions that deficit will take place in different districts across the state, right? So you look at the news, you can see that it happens sometimes. So I'm curious if this one stands out to you in some way.
I think there will always be, Charlie, that you're correct. They're projections and conditions change throughout the fiscal year. I think what CLA found were they mentioned some other glaring issues that triggered their interest. And when you're under budgeting for benefits, when you are not including an entire class of salary part-time hourly employees, that is concerning. So yes, certainly you see districts that they have protections that go up, that go down. And I think that CLA was concerned not about changes in conditions, but sort of glaring absence of certain things that were even considered.
Right, yeah.
And typically as districts identify the overfill rate based upon estimates of vacancies as they hire at a higher rate than what was anticipated, but they projected an 80% salary refill rate, right? As those numbers start to change, districts should often raise that, or talk about it, find ways to mitigate it and have that dialogue.
Of course, yeah, and I guess the question is like, compare, some of the information, if you read this document, it's like some of it was sort of coming alive as this report was being conducted. I guess the question is like, what is a reasonable time frame in which to incorporate that? And I noticed in New Haven, there was like something like a $4 million upward revision into the went from $4 million upward revision to the deficit this year. And again, it's like, it's hard for me to assess, I guess, as a board member who's not in the districts every day, when is this a deal and when is this something that is like, okay, well, projections are projections. So I appreciate the insight that it might have to do with the nature of the updates, but I also want to make sure that we are, there's a degree to which if we did this degree of oversight for other districts, it might also find things that we wish they were doing differently. But no, that's kind of the tension I'm trying to navigate in my mind here.
I think this allowed us to deeply understand the district's current status.
Great, and I'm fully on board to give it more information. It's better. I guess the question is like, okay, what's the best cadence at which to collect that information? Is there how to make sure it's worth the cost? It's hard to get, right? We hired an audit firm, we took our time and their time, and the question is like, how much value are we getting? But no, I appreciate the fact that the information is out there, so thank you. I guess the final question I just had was like, what's next? Can you tell me a little bit more about the next steps?
As Keith had mentioned, we are initiating the process of a forensic audit to understand the expenditures over the last 3 fiscal years and how those decision-making across budgets has occurred, and if there are any anomalies similar to what is occurred.
So how will we use that information moving forward? This investigation, what are we thinking?
Similarly to Bridgeport, as we've shared over the last few months, we can understand some of the fiscal controls that are strengthened. Our previous work was to develop some of those with our support from Public Works. Now we're understanding how that's impacting.
And I would appreciate an update on Public Works things the next time we have an opportunity to talk about this, because to me, I guess, when we came in here, it was like we were really worried about some of these, some of the basic fiscal controls, I think, right, as well as personnel. Hopefully, some of those have changed, and the leadership team they're totally different. So I just, going forward, it's trying to make sure that we can.
Excuse me, as Vice Chair had mentioned at the start of the meeting, the district will be able to report on some of their progress.
Sounds very good. Okay, I look forward to hearing that.
I think the results of this, are this review the CLA has done go hand in hand with the work that Public Works has done in terms of this office, the controls of the things that they needed to improve on. And that's one of the takeaways, basically. So the takeaway from something like this is here, we have a CLA that's come in and said these things weren't considered and they should be. So hopefully the takeaway is going to be when they're developing their budget, but also their budget projections as the year goes on, they're trying to greater level of accuracy.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree that anything you can do to help make the projections more accurate for the most part is a desirable thing to do. We should, things like that going forward, there's hopefully this.
I was going to say, this is all about helping and supporting the city, because we've all heard about not having enough resources to do the work that's necessary. Remember that this all started because, again, folks get confused about what we did with Public Works, which was not a fiscal audit. It was strengthen the system based on the things that we were learning at the time. When this board said, we need to be there to provide that level of support. We have CC 4 recommendations, again, on supporting the system and making sure the system improved. What we got here was issues around the actual finances. which is very different. And so all of us, I mean, in the work that the board has charged us to do, is being able to answer the question about how we support in districts and students with the resources that they have. And we know there's another issue, right, that's happening across the state about funding for education writ large. But you've got a specific example here from Bridgeport. Yes, there's funding, but there's also how you're utilizing the resources that you currently have. And that is important. I believe that's important for sport as well, as we're looking at outcomes for students ultimately in going in that direction. So is there more support that would be needed after we've gone through that? We've all acknowledged, and Superintendent Harford is new. He inherited this budget. I think same is true maybe for the chair. And so I think it is a positive for us to understand what may need to be strengthened and what needs to happen. And for the district to be able to also answer that question around what resources do you truly need and how do we go forward? So I think that's all a part of being able to support and the sports, right? Wanting to make sure that that is indeed happening. And so you'll have conversations at your accountability meetings, so you can have this dialogue back and forth, better understanding, and then how can we continue to provide support? What specifically then is the support that's necessary beyond those 64 recommendations for strengthening the system? Is there something else that needs to occur? And I think we will learn that objectively and then be able to take action in that space. And, you know, I looked over at Jessica smiling because we manage over $4 billion here. And how do we make sure that we're taking the time to understand, are we over, are we under? And if we are, what are we doing to mitigate? I mean, that is just a part of the process. But in order to do that, she's got to share with me, or I've got to query and understand accurately, you know, how we make those projections so that we can take the appropriate action. I think in general, not simplistically, but those are the kinds of things that we'd expect that would be happening. And as a leader, we want to make sure that that isn't.
Just for the board's information, the report that you have, just like any other report, it comes to the board first, and then this will be made public. But it was not made public until we see it as a board first. And so what we're seeing now, certainly the contents was shared with Hartford when they met with them. But it will be shared, the actual report will be shared with Hartford as well as the mayor, and already done at this point because we now have it. And we'll get into, as we always have, into the weeds, so to speak, and accountability support, which is actually with Hartford where we began years ago, but that's where we began, and we'll return there to discuss in further and to have dialogue directly with Hartford. That's the venue to do that. Sorry.
Based on what you just said, my question might now actually be for you. In light of the 3 bulleted areas that are on page 2, to me, bullets 1 and 3 seem like a systemic issue that occurred in the fiscal year 26 budget. Presumably the fiscal year 27 budget had the same errors in it. So do we know that that has been adjusted for next year's budget, or is that something that we will be digging into, as you said?
That's what we're going to hear from Hartford, so that they actually discuss this further, because you're correct. I mean, we saw some of these already in place before this new leadership took over, and now we'll hear directly from Superintendent Hartford. Thank you. Pick up.
To Dr. Zimmerman's point, every district has calculations, but I think the magnitude in the cities is that much greater, so it is harder. But I think the key is to have regular reporting and monitoring, probably every 2 weeks in public at a board meeting, so that adjustments that need to be made can be made, because it's hard to make an adjustment in June. Here, it's a lot easier to do it in October and November. But I do want to say, based on the report, what it said, there are some silver linings here, because if the vacancy rate was expected to be 6%, it's only 3%. That means we're getting more teachers in the classroom. And if the budget compensation rate for the staff actually turns out to be higher than what they projected. That is partly because they were filling the vacancies more, but also it may very well mean that they were hiring people with more experience and better educational credentials. And it's again really important for improving our public schools. So I do think it is about monitoring and it is about the magnitude of the system. But with regular reporting, I think we can make adjustments, and having a reduced vacancy rate and better qualified teachers, that's the goal.
Mr. Harris.
Everything that you have said, very, very true. However, my comment, and that's what it is, no questions, is I want to thank you, Norton, for your diligence in unpeeling this onion. Hoping Hartford take care of their own finances. That's the ultimate goal. I just thank you for what you're doing, what the work Hartford is doing, the auditors, the associates, you know, job well done. Job well done.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to Bridgeport.
Thank you, Commissioner. Good afternoon. Good morning, still. A running joke, right? My pleasure to update you on Bridgeport Public Schools, and I will be brief considering the length of last month's presentation from both technical assistance team and support that fast Bridgeport. Primarily focused on the board of governance and oversight. Since around March, we've been supporting the district with understanding the expectations relative to posting for the permanent superintendent position. We've been going back and forth with the board chair, and essentially there was a keen focus on making sure that the board had adopted new and updated bylaws and administrative policies that were most specifically relative to the oversight of the superintendent, primary role of the board. So the board has done their work in that way. They have updated those policies, worked with CAVE in doing so, adopting many of their model policies to show industry standard quality, if you will. And we were notified by the board chair just recently that they have selected a firm by the June 1 deadline that we had hoped for. And under the commissioner's support for the district, we are going to begin the conversation with them to support them financially for the costs related to that search so that they can go that without an impact. So please be able to provide you. The question. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Brian, Klinkovitz and Catherine Skinner, just to this in your packet, there's a one pager on versus education. And they'll check it out. Hello.
Thank you, Commissioner, and good morning, all. We're happy to report out on special education update. As the Commissioner mentioned, in your packet, you have a high-level overview of the activities related to the West Ed report and their recommendations. This is a very busy time for special education, as I'm sure you're aware. This month especially is a heavy volume for our annual review for our students and planning, as well as their extended school year programs that will be starting in a few short months. Our team supporting those activities. We wanted to highlight, the Commissioner mentioned the competitive grants that we just rolled out to enhance capacity within the district to support especially intensive student needs within the district with the goal of educating students in their neighboring schools and community. Our IDA grant application was also submitted this past month, which was a culmination of great coordination and collaboration across departments. Our local districts are also completing their IDA grants, actually this past Friday. So our teams will be reviewing 170 plus applications, and we're looking for those coordinated services. With regard to the recommendations and professional development activities, we are continuing the next phase of our statewide rollout around IEP quality, moving from compliance and process to quality and results for our students, and also expanding to general education teachers and administrators. And our activities have been in district and extremely successful for those kinds of rollouts. That's a wonderful collaboration with our partners at CERC as well as the RESC Alliance. I also wanted to mention we are engaging with our partners at PCG who support the special education data system. We have a new Connecticut lead that we've been meeting with on a regular basis. Her name is Jennifer Flagg, to move us to the next phase of activity supporting our districts, which will kick off with a usability study over the summer months and into the fall. So at this time, I'll turn it over to Catherine to talk about some high-level activities related to infrastructure.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you for everyone here today. I will talk first about our complaints. I'm not going to read this information to you. I know you're relieved. As you can see, we continue to achieve well over 90% compliance with our federal 60-day timeline. That is primarily due to the extraordinary efforts of our complaint investigators, including our complaints coordinator, Jen James. We have this year stood up a very comprehensive tracking process for every single complaint that comes through our office, from receipt through the investigation process, through determining sufficiency, coming to our conclusions and issuing our findings letters. Obviously, that's very successful at the moment. Again, the efforts of our complaint investigators cannot be overstated. They're working very hard because, as you are also aware, we continue to experience an incredibly high volume of complaints. I think over the past 4 years, we're at about a 64% increase year over year from 4 years ago to today. We have already surpassed 300 complaints received this year as compared to last year. We were somewhere around 260, 270. So just to put that in a frame of reference for you. We are also engaged with West Ed specifically on some process mapping and talent mapping activities. For anyone who's familiar with lean processing or Six Sigma, we went through a full process mapping activity focused on issuing guidance documents, getting them all the way through drafting, development, review, approval, published to the field. That activity was very well received. We found it very helpful. We will be applying the results of our adjustments to that process this summer. We're very excited about it. And speaking of CERC, we are going to be repeating that process mapping activity for some of our processes where we engage with CERC to work on some projects, and then some internal processes within the Bureau, such as issuing our reports from on-site monitoring visits, just as a couple of examples. So we're finding that to be very, very beneficial. If you're interested, you could read Flow Engineering, as I did, to learn a little bit more about some of the processes West Ed has coached us through. And talent mapping was scheduled, just another lean process, and professional capital activity was scheduled for last Friday. Unfortunately, we had to reschedule. It will be happening this Friday to better align the staff that we have with the work assignments and required and best practice work that we need to do within the Bureau.
And just finishing up with our next steps, as Catherine mentioned, the work with the complaint investigators in due process are helping to inform our technical assistance as well as activities next year. We continue to have monthly meetings with our parent and board attorneys, which have been really well received. And we are exploring a new informal dispute resolution process called IEP facilitation. And we're very excited about rolling that out as well. Under the leadership of the Deputy Commissioner and with her support, we've been collaborating and coordinating as well on our educator shortages related to special education. We meet with Dr. Tucker and Dr. Gopi on a bi-weekly basis We have some competitive grants that were supported by the commissioner and part of your support in last year's budget to look to enhance the profession of our paraeducators and career pathways for them, as well as shortage areas. So we continue to meet on a bi-weekly basis in those coordinated activities. And we're happy to answer any questions. And thank you, Commissioner, for your support.
Thank you very much, Brian. Any questions? Right, thank you very much for being here. The final presentation that I have for you on Connecticut Fresh Ed. John Frasinelli will be joining us. I don't know and this was a specific request. Thank you, Ms. Burr, and for the Vice Chair to provide this update to you all.
Thank you. I don't know who was the genius in scheduling that we start talking about food at exactly noon. Very impressive. Good afternoon. I'm John Frasinelli, Division Director in School Health, Child Nutrition, and Family Services. I'm here to talk about the Fresh Ed program. You go to the next slide. So CT Fresh Ed is really a statewide brand that we developed to amplify and celebrate farm to school efforts, not just in schools, but also in childhood programs and summer service programs. There's really three components, which you may have seen on the banners outside. There's the cafeteria and the classroom and the schools. So I'm going to talk briefly about all of those. So the Regional Farm to School Coordinators is a partnership with the Yukon Cooperative Extension. And these 5 coordinators, I like to refer to them as matchmakers. They work directly with districts to connect districts with farms, and they work directly with the farmers to help farmers understand how to approach schools to have a relationship for purchasing local products. In the past year, they've helped actually procure over $2 million in local food for schools, and we're going to go onward and upward from there. The Buy Local program is.
I just want to make sure that the board members have, it's in your packet, in the deck that we have, so thank you.
And you can go to the link of the CT Fresh Ed Compass, and it will navigate you through all of this. The Buy Local program used to be called the Local Food for Schools Incentive Program. We changed the name because that was also the name of the federal program, so just to keep things straight. This year we have $1.5 million state funds for districts to get reimbursed at 50% of their expenditures on local foods. And next year we actually have $3.5 million for next school year. So again, a lot of support for supporting our farmers. So this is to allow schools to buy local products in what we refer to as either unprocessed or minimally processed foods, right? So these are whole heads of lettuce, but minimally processed could mean that the lettuce is shredded and bagged, or butternut squash is frozen for preservation, or in order to for convenience or preservation, but can't add fats, can't add sugars, can't add anything really. So really, it's the whole product. The CT Fresh Ed Compass is an online tool that we work with the Yukon Red Center for Health Policy to develop. It really is a sort of soup to nuts, apologies for the good reference, way in which schools can assess their situation. What is happening in each of your schools? What is your participation in school meals? What is the acceptance of the foods that you're serving in school meals? What is your ability to purchase locally, right? Who are the farmers in your communities? Who are your champions that are going to support you in this effort when you're moving it forward? Shows areas of needs and really creates a roadmap forward that with our team and the team at Yukon and the navigators, that they can help make those connections to have a plan forward for those schools. You'll see in the upper right-hand corner, the CT Grown for CT Kids Week. We also partner with the State Department of Agriculture that provides grants to schools for a number of things. Some really exciting things is purchasing retired shipping containers to have hydroponic growing throughout the school year. Opportunities to build greenhouses so that schools can actually grow food on site so that they can use them in all of their programs. So also part of this, the second part of this is an important sort of advancement on farm to school, which is the classroom. And why does it matter? Why does the classroom have to be? And just to be clear, we're not talking about 2 apples plus 2 apples equals 4 apples, right? What we're talking about, we know that healthy students are better learners. We know that hands-on and garden experiences enhance STEM, enhance literacy, enhance environmental education, and students' understanding of nutrition. So we're partnering with the academics office to develop a farm-to-child curriculum for inclusion in Go Open CT, which is the academic office digital library for standards-aligned, culturally responsive instructional resources. So that will be coming out. The initial curriculum development will focus on grades K to 8, with grades 9 to 12 quickly following. It's a curriculum of learning that includes nutrition education, but also connects students to understanding Connecticut's agricultural economy, Connecticut food systems, workforce opportunities, everything from agriculture, farming, culinary careers, and food service operations. So this dovetails very specifically with the work that Deputy Commissioner Hughes and the academic office is doing around industry recognized credentials to get students more interested in understanding what career possibilities there are in these fields. Next slide, please. So here's just some of our successes. Over $2 million invested in local foods. We've got over 200 farmers engaged in this work. 136 of our 170 National School Lunch Program sponsors have signed up for the program. 50 sponsors have completed and submitted the compass to help them move forward. We've done field trips, and we continue to offer trainings in partnership with the University of Connecticut on all of this moving forward. So the other thing I wanted to mention is that the community aspect of this, right? So we want to make sure it becomes part of the community. And this local sourcing improves food safety, improves transparency, understanding where your food comes from. It helps students understand that there are people in their community that are growing this food. It gives families confidence in the meals that are being served in schools. And it lowers the carbon footprint of the foods that are being served in schools. They don't have to come from across the country. They're coming from right down the street. It strengthens our local economy. It supports farmers. And again, it introduces students to pathways in agriculture, culinary, understanding of supply chain economics, and hopefully those students will be interested in those careers, stay in Connecticut for sustainability of those industries in Connecticut. Some of you may recognize that this aligns very closely with the CDC model, the WISC model, the whole school, whole child, whole community model, which incorporates all of these things, including family engagement, school climate and culture, social emotional understanding, in all that work. So it's purposeful that we align it with that, right? Emotional wellness, physical wellness, all at the same time. And the last slide I'll show you, if you haven't been in a school and seen school lunch lately, this is what school lunch is like today. So we would really love it for you to be ambassadors out there that say, geez, I saw what school lunch looks like now, and it doesn't look like anything like I remember. There are a number of things on that plate in the middle is a banh mi wrap, and it has daikon radishes and carrots from Vibrant Farms in Wilka. On the right-hand side, the kale came from Sub Edge Farm in Farmington, and much of the lettuce is coming from the H2O farm in Guilford. So just an idea of how this works and what these presentations look like in school lunch. And I will tell you that what was the most interesting to me is we're not just talking about apples in the fall or butternut squash in the fall. We're talking about farms that are providing poultry to schools. We're talking about farms that are providing honey to schools. We have a farm that's growing wheat that is being used to make whole grain pasta for school meals. My favorite one is we have the Stonington Kelp Company. They're growing sugar kelp in the ocean, and they're providing it to schools to include in their meals. Chopped, dried in their salads, they're making sauces, they're making all kinds of exciting things. And this kelp farms are essentially a zero carbon footprint because it grows in the ocean, doesn't require fertilizer, doesn't require fresh water. It's really exciting stuff. So before I stop, I just want to acknowledge Shannon Yearwood. Shannon's the force behind all of this and the work with UConn all of UConn and her team, just have put this whole thing together, and it's just been an amazing amount of work. And district, as you can see, districts are jumping on board and improving school meals as a result of supporting local farmers. And it's a win-win-win all around. So thank you.
Thank you, John, and thanks for helping us to have a mind shift around what school meals are or what they can be today. So just appreciate it. I don't know if you have any questions or comments.
You know, I'm not gonna let this one go. So Shannon, a shout out to all the amazing work that you do, and John, to you as well. I think that one of the things that has really come forward as we start taking a look at how can we have healthy kids is making sure that there's healthy food. And I think that really started to hit home for a lot of us during COVID, you know, and before that. I mean, that's not to say that this has not been important, but when we saw so many young people that didn't have access to good, fresh food and whole food, not just something that was processed, you know, that they could get out of a can. And so just a huge shout out, and I want to thank all of you for putting this together to share with us, you know, some of the things that are happening. And I know, again, the love that you have for dietetics and healthy kids. And again, John, the work you're doing, Shannon and doing is just, thank you so much for elevating that our kids deserve to eat healthy in school.
No pun intended, but I just want to go on the record as saying that I do eat school lunch almost every day, and it is excellent. And I particularly do appreciate the fresh fruit and vegetables that we have. I know my students do too, because they often secretly pocket extra food that comes out, and they are eating it all day. They shouldn't be technically in class, but the change, particularly since the pandemic, that I have seen in my own high school has been remarkable, particularly around those areas. And it is a really good thing to see kids wanting to and have access to at school really good fruits and vegetables. So thank you for highlighting this. Thank you.
Just to echo, this record, my son's a student at the public schools, they won't let us send him lunch. One vote.
And some of this, just a comment on New Haven, because some of this really relies on really innovative practices by food service directors. One story from New Haven is they had a frozen strawberry fruit cup, and no one ate it. And then they said, well, why don't we defrost it? We'll serve it at room temperature. Nobody ate it. So now they specifically take it out 40 minutes before lunchtime. So it's still slushy. It's not warm, it's not frozen, it's still edible. I mean, those are the.
That's a real thing in my high school too.
Those are the things that these creative folks trying these school nutrition programs are really good.
I can remember when smoothies were offered for breakfast, and we had the best early attendance. No one was tardy when these smoothies were going to be offered. They were in line for those smoothies.
But to tell you, I've been retired now for 20 years from the Bloomfield schools. And if anybody knows somebody from the Bloomfield schools, give them a message. Don Harris is coming to check them out. Because I ate school lunches all my time there.
It didn't look like that. Dr. Carlson.
I just wanted to say thank you for both of you and for everybody who's part of the program, because for many of the kids that, you know, we serve at Connecticut Children's and across the state, this may be the only time during the day that they get fresh fruits and vegetables. So important.
The next thing is a farm to hospital program.
Actually, and even with that, some of the hospitals are actually having gardens on their roofs now to supply fresh fruits and vegetables into the hospital.
John, thank you very much, and thank you to Shannon and the team behind you. Not many people know that we have in John's area, we have registered dietitians that's there along with other committed folks, and they're doing this work every day. So truly appreciate you and the work you do.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity.
And we're going, the last thing I just wanted to let you know, the Blue Ribbon Commission on K-12 Funding and Accountability convened for the first time tomorrow at 10 o'clock. at the LOB. It will be streamed, as you can well imagine. And I know for folks watching, will pay attention that there'll be opportunities, you know, I'm pleased to invite the vice chair of that commission, Naomi Wagner, interim chief of staff at the governor's office, is the chair. And so we start tomorrow. It's a 3-hour meeting scheduled for tomorrow at the LOB. And, you know, certainly will, not tomorrow, but we'll be working to make sure that there's community engagement, stakeholder engagement, and I'm sure people have a lot to share and to say, and we'll be making sure that that is occurring. So just wanted the board to be aware of that as well. Thank you.
All right, I think we can get a few more items in before we break for lunch. Want me to motion on 8A, the GED Scholar Award winner. So moved. That's very good. All right, back to the table. Why don't we just make motions for A, B, and C? Since they're all resolutions. Thank you.
Need Gilberto and second.
We'll do them all together. I didn't realize they were all the same.
And C.
Same.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. So annually, the Department of Education honors an individual who attained the highest score on the General Education Development GED test during the previous calendar year. Connecticut's GED testing program provides that opportunity for youths and adults not enrolled to obtain a high school diploma. And annually, we honor an individual with the highest GED test score. So it is recommended that the State Board of Education recognize Brian Hung as the GED Scholar for 2025. He earned a total of 750 out of a possible score of 800, which is the highest score attained in Connecticut during 2025. This achievement brings honor to him, certainly the State Board of Education and the state of Connecticut. And thank you for your consideration.
It's ready for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Congratulations. They're not here.
No.
Okay.
But we follow up with a certificate and a letter.
Thank you.
And the resolution.
Next item.
Next item B. So thank you all. I do want to take a moment with this particular item to recognize the Career and Technical Education Unit and specifically Sean McEwen. Mr. McEwen serves as our program manager for all of the state career and technical organizations, also referred to as CTSOs. So for background, career and technical student organizations are co-curricular opportunities in Connecticut schools that are committed to the development of individual leadership skills. CTSOs are part of a comprehensive high school and the Connecticut Technical Education Career System. Students and their teacher advisors engage in these groups that collaborate in hands-on applications of real-world experiences. Each CTSO participates in state and national competitions where students can transfer their learning and skills and compete for titles, for recognition, state seats for themselves as an individual or a team for the school. And we have heard from many graduate testimonials include the importance of their participation in a school CTSO and what they've learned, and that learning experience has done great things for them beyond high school. I had the pleasure of visiting some of the events, and enrollment is on the rise. So it's getting its recognition. Specifically, attended DECA at the AfriTurf. It exceeded the capacity. I thought for sure they were going to close the doors. And FBLA was, believe it or not, breaking at the seams at the convention center right next door. So again, enrollment is on the rise. The department continues to devote time and oversight to modernize our CTSOs and access to resources in direct service of the state board plan, the 5-year comprehensive plan. And specific to this strategy, we released a statewide CTSO overview and operational guidebook for consistency and coherence that was published in November and shared statewide. We also conducted a competitive application process to invite other national organizations to be recognized as a state CTSO. After a rigorous review, we have since added ProStart in that culinary space and Ed Rising as a CTSO.
So 1 through 7, there are 9. So before you are 7 that are being recognized. This is what we received from the organizations. So DECA, which would be Fairfield Ward High School. For Ed Rising, New Britain High School. For FCCLA, Windsor High School. Nonawak High School for FFA. Farmington High School for HOSA. And Valley Regional High School for Technical Student Organization, also known as TSA.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Congratulations to all these schools.
And the teachers are really important to that process too, so it's important to recognize the teachers of these schools in these chapters.
It's nice to hear they're all such credits. So
Yeah,
increase.
that career connected learning is happening.
That's
Next item. So before you is a recommendation to recognize 5 individuals for their accomplishments to achieve basic education or secondary school completion, whether that's a GED program or ESL or U.S. citizenship preparation. Programs and opportunities that truly do provide unlocking their potential for sure in adult education centers across the state. So I'd like to name the 5 individuals before you. We had Lexi Escantino from New Haven Health Ed. Shi Ching Liao Chien for Norwich Adult Education. Lonnie Lee for Wallingford Adult Education. Hannah Castellana from Literacy Volunteers at Family Centers. And Mawish Shishan at Advance. So I think you'll agree upon reading the testimonials before provided by the adult education centers that these 5 individuals are role models and inspiration for all of us. I do want to recognize our own folks here at the State Department that are strong advocates for adult education. Sabrina Mancini, Susan Kosava, Marcy Reed, and Laura Lynch. It is through their support that the adult education centers can create accessible learning and opportunities for our 18,960 adult learners statewide. And certainly, thank you, Commissioner Russell-Tucker, for your persistence and reminding us that we do serve all learners, students, and adults. It's also important to share that these learners were recognized on March 13th, side by side with the Commissioner and the Governor at the CASE conference. So it is clear from the summary of their accomplishments that these learners have unlocked their potential through these achievements. So thank you for your consideration.
in favor? Aye. Congratulations to all of them.
Thank you.
And their
Please take a letter and a copy of the resolution.
Thank you. Item 8D, the consideration of approval of certification for Tanesha Edwards.
Second.
Good afternoon, Vice Chair Bellman and board members. We're here today requesting consideration of approval for initial certification for Tanesha Edwards, unit coordinator, Kim Richard, to provide you with background information.
Good afternoon, Board of Education members. Tanesha Edwards is requesting a certification waiver for issuance of an initial educator certificate. She completed her special education educator preparation program at Southern Connecticut State University, which included the required dyslexia-related coursework content and supervised practicum. And she has been serving successfully as a special education teacher for the New Haven Public Schools since August 2021. She successfully completed the Praxis 2 special ed test and received a score of 233 on the Foundation of Reading test, which misses the cut score by 7 points, but also falls within one standard error of measurement of the passing score. If Pearson offered a bridge option like Praxis in Connecticut for the Foundations of Reading, she would qualify for that alternative testing option. New Haven Public Schools strongly supports her candidacy as a special education teacher, and they have strategically focused her professional development on successful implementation of the reading curriculum, systematic structured literacy for students with learning and language disabilities, evidence-based literacy interventions,
literacy lesson design and implementation, and the role of assistive technology in supporting youth development. If Ms. Edwards' request for initial educator certificate is granted, she must complete all requirements necessary at the time of application to advance to the next level of certifications, including but not limited to successful completion of the Teen Beginning Educator Induction Program and professional experience.
Questions from the board? All in favor of voting for this waiver? Aye. Opposed? Congratulations, Ms. Edwards.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Item AE, the adoption of the CEPCB's 2026 proposals regarding sunset regulations. So moved. Rodriguez and Deputy Commissioner.
Good afternoon, everyone. We're here just to do much of what we've done in the past, to go over the regulations that we have been working on. These regulations were approved by the board, the Connecticut Education Preparation and Certification Board in January, and in December, and then LPDC in February, I believe it was, or January. And so now they are before you. So for approval, these are the ones that were identified as sunsetting, many of which we have replaced language for and or identified other regulations that need to be repealed. So that is the gist of the packet, like we've done in the past. We've been a push flyer at these meetings. So we ask for your approval on these so that we can continue the process of entering them into the e-regs.
Any questions? I know this went through LPC, so I'm guessing this is forward. Any questions from the board before? Favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Great. Thank you so much for your support.
And with that, this is where we will break for lunch. 30 minutes. 30-minute break for lunch. Sweet break, dude.
Yeah. Yeah, like these were doing.
Yes.
That's the yeah, it's definitely gonna go let me eat because there's not saying. Run out.
I think I got a
Change my email. Raj,
No, I thought.
You're like a little.
See if I can.
We are going to move on with our agenda. I motion for 8F, the review of the state charter of Amistad County in New Haven. So moved. Oops. Dr. Jenkins.
Hello. Oh, thank you. Hello, I'm Lauren Armandi.
Good afternoon, Vice Chair, Board Member, Commissioner. In your board packet for your consideration is the renewal of Amistad Academy. With me at the table is Lauren Ramondi, Elementary School Principal. Jasmine Watts, high school principal. Quinta Dinkins, middle school principal. And Alex Dunsday, the representative from the governing council. Amistad Academy, a school that has served the New Haven community for 27 years. Mission is to prepare students to deepen their knowledge of self and community, to excel at college, career, and life, and to lead lives of purpose and leadership. It is not just a statement. This mission is visible in classrooms, in the hallways, and in the voices of the 34 community members who showed up to the public hearing. Every single one of them is supportive of the school. Amistad currently enrolls 1,089 students in grades K through 12, nearly 79% of whom qualify for free and reduced price meals. Amistad's mathematics academic growth significantly outpaces both the state and host district. Its four-year graduation rate of 90.5% exceeds the state average and far surpasses New Haven's 72.5%. Nearly 78% of the graduates are entering post-secondary pathways, which is above the state average. On discipline, Amistad earned a Tier 1 rating, reflecting low suspension rates and low disproportionality, at a time when both the whole district and the state rated Tier 3. The chronic absenteeism, while still a focus, has improved steadily, down 10 full percentage points over 3 years, a testament to the school's commitment to keeping students engaged and connected. Fiscally, Amistad has demonstrated strengthened cash reserves, improving its cash on hand from 125 to 130 days, and the governing council has financial oversight structures in place. The renewal conditions will support the school in formalizing and documenting those structures to ensure long-term sustainability and transparency. On governance, the Amistad Governing Council has bylaws in effect and has shown responsiveness to the CSDE's feedback, and the renewal conditions will support the council in strengthening board composition, documentation, and oversight practices to reflect the full capacity the school deserves. The areas identified for continuous improvement include on-track to graduation rates, ELA performance, services for English language learners and students with disabilities, as well as teacher certification standards. This reflects an opportunity for the school with 27 years of community trust to reach even further. The CSDE recommends a 3-year renewal based on its current strengths, its commitment to continuous improvement, and the commitment to the students and families served. At this time, you will hear from elementary school principal Laura Vermonti, and then afterwards, governing council member Alex Dunsday.
Thank you, Dr. Duncan. I already started introducing myself. I jumped ahead. My name is Lauren Ramondi, and I wanted to first say thank you for this opportunity to speak on behalf of Amistad. I'm joined here by our other amazing principals, Jasmine and Kiana, and our governing member, Alex. And so over this charter term, the Amistad team is proud to have made meaningful progress in student outcomes. Our math school performance index increased from 50.3 to 53.1, and our Smarter Balanced math growth improved from 63% to 70% of targets were reached. We also maintained strong graduation outcomes with a 90.5% 4-year graduation rate and a 96.7 6-year graduation rate. And although there are many strengths that we are proud of, we recognize that there is still area for improvement in a number of critical areas. We're actively taking action in these 4 core areas, which Dr. Jenkins touched upon briefly. We are proud of the progress that we've made in reducing chronic absenteeism. It was at about 50% during 21-22, and we are down to 28.3% in 24-25. We are working closely with our families and our school attendance teams to continue this trajectory downward with chronic absenteeism, because we know that our kids need to be in school to learn. We are also increasing teacher certification through retention incentives and certification support, with 30 educators currently pursuing traditional certification, which puts us on the path to be over 50% traditionally certified as required. We are actively working on strengthening our special ed recruitment and retention, and expanding our services for English language and multilingual learners through the ARCTEL program, which has been an amazing partner with us. We're also addressing the on-factor graduation indicator, reflecting the percent of our ninth graders earning 6 or more credits. We've made significant changes to ensure that this indicator rebounds strongly. Last year's dip in that number was due primarily to programming gaps that have been addressed with new school leadership in place and important school schedule changes to allow students to achieve those credits. So alongside our governing council, we remain committed to continuous improvement, ensuring that every student receives a high quality education that prepares them for long-term success. And we respectfully request renewal. And again, thank you for your support and partnership in helping us achieve that. We'll turn it over to Alex.
Thank you, Lauren, and thank you, Dr. Jenkins, and really thank you to all the principals here. They really what make Amistad Schools function for our kids. Good evening, or good afternoon, actually, members of the board. My name is Alex Guzne, and I'm speaking on behalf of the Governing Council here today. Thank you for the opportunity to speak here today. It's thoughtful consideration throughout this renewal process. Just also want to say it's an honor to sit next to Principal Dinkins, who used to be my middle school teacher. I'm proud Amistad alum, so I think it's also just wanted to recognize that and recognize especially for that. So as a governing council, we remain deeply committed to the long-term success and stability of the school, and ensuring that students and families continue to have access to a high-quality educational option in the New community. We definitely recognize the concerns and recommendations raised by the Connecticut State Department of Education regarding various governance practices, operational oversight, policy review processes, financial controls, and responsibilities of the board. We definitely take this feedback seriously and understand the importance of maintaining strong governance systems that support transparency, accountability, and effective school oversight. And so throughout this process, the Governance Council has really reflected carefully on these areas and has already begun reviewing internal practices related to board operations, recruitment, and onboarding processes, policy and manual updates, evaluation procedures, financial oversight, and compliance systems. We've already identified a teacher representative on the board and already worked to calendar out the 6 required meetings for next year. Among other things. And we understand that this work really does require continued attention from all the directors on the governing council and ongoing collaboration with school leadership, principals, and other relevant stakeholders. We definitely view this renewal period as an opportunity to further strengthen the systems and structures that support the school's long-term success. And we really remain committed to continuous improvement, thoughtful governance, and ensuring that our students continue receiving the educational opportunities and support they deserve. And so as the representative of the board of directors, we respectfully requesting renewal of our charter, and really truly thank you for all your partnership and consideration. Thank you so much.
Accountability and support. They had an update from Amistad, but there are other questions. Okay. All in favor of the renewal of Amistad Academy of New Haven? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Item 8G, the renewal of state charter at Elm City College Preparatory School in New Haven. Motion.
So move.
Second.
It's a pleasure. In your board packet for your consideration is the renewal of Elm City College Preparatory. With me at the table is Governing Council Member Letitia Douglas, Elementary Principal Serena Johnson, and Middle School Principal Michelle Renard. Elm City College Preparatory, a school that has been a part of the New Haven community for 22 years, has a similar mission to prepare students to deepen their knowledge of self and community, to excel at college and career and life, and lead lives of purpose and leadership. And this was supported by 13 speakers who testified in support of the school. Students who testified described ECCP as an amazing school where I can continue to flourish. And the students praised teachers who help us grow our brains. The mission was visible during the site visit in elementary and middle school classrooms. We're building foundational skills in small groups, goal statements lining the middle school wall where students and staff have made a commitment to grow public, and fifth graders playing instruments in band class, absorbing immediately and applying their teachers' feedback, reflecting a strong school culture. ECCP currently enrolls 760 students in grades K through 8, with 78% qualifying for food and reduced price meals. The school demonstrates strong and sustained community demand, maintaining a wait list and drawing students from across New Haven and 3 sending districts. On performance, ECCP results tells a story of students outperforming their host district context. ELA and math performance indices for high need students exceeds both state and New Haven averages, which is a meaningful achievement for schools serving predominantly Black and Hispanic students from lower income households. Progress towards English proficiency and literacy is also above state and district averages. The 6-year graduation rate for high need students reaches 97.6%, and post-secondary entrance climbed to nearly 83%, well above state average. On discipline, ECCP earned a Tier 1 rating, reflecting low suspension rates and low disproportionality, even at the district and state rating Tier 3. Fiscally, ECCP has strengthened its cash reserves from 105 to 115 days to maintain positive cash flow for 3 consecutive years. On governance, the council has bylaws in effect and has already moved to expand board membership. The renewal conditions will support areas in formalizing structures and documentation that will ensure the school's long-term sustainability and accountability. The areas identified for continuous improvement include academic growth in ELA and math, chronic absenteeism, on track to graduation, staffing for L and ML students, and teacher certification improvements. These areas reflect not a lack of promise, but an opportunity for a school of 22 years in a community with community groups to reach even further. The CSDE recommends a 3-year renewal based on ECCP's culture and shared commitment to do what the school can and continue to become. At this time, Serena Johnson will provide an overview from the principal perspective.
Good afternoon, members of the board. My name is Serena Johnson. I'm principal of Elm City Elementary School, and I'm here along with Lisa Renal, who is the middle school principal, and governing board member Letitia Douglas. I am honored to speak here today on behalf of Elm City College Prep. We appreciate the opportunity to share the impact of our school that our school continues to have on students and families, and we respectfully ask for the renewal of our charter. Elm City's results demonstrate strong outcomes for students, and we are particularly proud of how we have served students with high needs. Over the past 3 years, our ELA performance index for high need students has consistently exceeded the state average, including 57.5% this year compared to the state's 54.9% in 2004-2005. Elm City also outperformed the state in math performance index for high need students, 51.3% compared to the 50.6%. Additionally, 100% of Elm City students over the past 3 years participated in courses aligned to college and career readiness, exceeding the state rate each year. Our 6-year graduation rate for the high need students reached 97.6% this year compared to the state's 87.3%, and our post-secondary entrance rate of 82.9% far exceeded the state's average of 67%. Elm City's students also continue to make strong gains in English proficiency and literacy, outperforming the state over the last 2 years. While we are proud of these accomplishments, we also remain focused on continuing improvement. While chronic absenteeism has steadily declined from our 33% to 25% over the last 3 years, we recognize our rates remain above the state average, and we are strongly committed to continuing to implement targeted attendance support. We're also expanding our teacher certification supports, strengthening special education, recruitment and retention, and increasing services for English learners and multilingual students by leveraging the RTEL program. Finally, additional improvements are also already underway at our high school academy. Schedule changes have been made for the next year to support students taking the acquired 7 credits in freshman year and beyond the state's 6 credit indicators for 9th grade to be on track to graduation. Alongside our governing council, we remain committed to ensuring every student receives high quality education that prepares them for long-term success. And we respectfully request our charter to, and thank you for your continued partnership, our charter to be renewed. And thank you for thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Members of the board. My name is Letitia Douglas. I am speaking on behalf of the Governing Council for the Elm City College Prep Academy. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today, and I am honored to be here. We appreciate the feedback provided in the renewal report and view it as an opportunity to continue strengthening our governance practices and board operations. We are actively prioritizing board recruitment. Recently, we recruited and welcomed a new board member who currently serves as CEO of SELF, Special Education Leadership Fellowship. We are excited to benefit from her experience in special education, and we are continuing to take proactive steps to recruit community leaders who bring valuable perspectives to support Elm City's continuous improvement. We are also actively working to fill our treasurer's vacancy and recruit additional members, including the required parent and teacher representation. All of this is already in motion. In response to the recommendations outlined in the report, the board has been discussing several areas of continued improvement, including board procedures, meeting documentation, committee operations, and oversight practices. We are committed to holding at least 6 board meetings during the upcoming school year. The dates are currently being finalized, and we understand the necessity and urgency to be in full compliance, and we are actively working to ensure we fulfill that responsibility. The Governing Council remains committed to supporting the long-term success of the school and continuing to strengthen its practices in alignment with the state's requirements and board expectations. Thank you again for your time and consideration.
Questions or comments for the board? All in favor of the renewal of the Elm City charter? Aye. Opposed? Congratulations, motion carried.
Okay.
I have a motion of the renewal of the state charter for the Achievement First Bridgeport Academy.
So moved.
Second.
In your board packet for your consideration is the renewal of Achievement First Bridgeport Academy. With me at the table is Stephanie Fox, middle school principal for Achievement First Bridgeport Academy. Raj Larkra, governing council chair for Achievement First Bridgeport, the elementary school principal, Sylvia Garnett. We are here today to consider the renewal of Achievement First Bridgeport Academy, a school that has served the Bridgeport community for more than 19 years. AFBA's mission to prepare students to deepen their knowledge of self and community, to excel at college, career, and life, and to lead lives of purpose and leadership resonates clearly at the public hearing for 22 of the 40 individuals in attendance set forward to testify in strong support of the school. Parents, students, staff, and alumni alike spoke to Achievement First Bridgeport's culture of relationship as the foundation of its impact on student growth and confidence. Achievement First Bridgeport currently enrolls 1,054 students in grades K through 12, with nearly all residing in Bridgeport, and 74% qualifying for free or reduced price meetings. The school maintains consistent community demand with a wait list that has remained above 60 students across the past 3 years. On performance, there are genuine bright spots. Achievement First Bridgeport's ELA academic growth for both all students and high need students meets and exceeds the state average. It's a meaningful signal that the students are making progress. The ELA Performance Index for high need students outperforms the state and host districts. The school's college and career readiness exam passing rate of 49.5% exceeds the state average. And Achievement First Bridgeport's 4-year graduation rate of 89.6% far surpasses Bridgeport schools. On discipline, AFBA earned a Tier 1 rating this year, a notable improvement from prior years, reflecting low suspension rates and low disproportionality at a time when both federal and state rate Tier 3. Additionally, AFBA is the only school in this renewal cohort that has achieved full compliance with ELA and ML statutory requirements. And the CSDE commends the school's TESOL staff for their expertise in family outreach. Fiscally, AFBA has made steady progress in strengthening its financial position. The school has moved to a positive total margin, significantly improved its debt service coverage ratio, and maintains 173 days of unrestricted cash, reflecting stronger reserves. Renewal conditions will support the school in continuing that momentum, formalizing financial oversight structures and documentation to ensure long-term sustainability. On governance, the council has passed bylaws in effect. The renewal conditions will support continued oversight practice. The areas identified for continuous improvement are math academic growth, on track to graduation rate, chronic absenteeism, student re-enrollment trends, and teacher certification and progress. These areas reflect not a lack of commitment, but an opportunity for a school with 19 years of community investment to accelerate the gains already underway. The CSDE recommends a 3 years charter renewal. At this time, we will hear from Stephanie Fox.
Good afternoon. My name is Stephanie Fox, and I'm here with Sylvia Garnett, the principal of our elementary school, as well as Rajiv Lakra,
who is on our governing council. I am the Achievement First Bridgeport Middle School Principal in the Bridgeport Charter. And thank you for your opportunity to speak today and for your thoughtful review of our renewal application. Bridgeport Academy remains deeply committed to preparing all students for success in college and career. Our students continue to demonstrate strong outcomes, including exceeding the state's college and career readiness benchmark, with 49.5% of students meeting readiness indicators compared to the state's 47.2%. In addition, we are very proud that 100% of our 11th and 12th grade students enroll in college and career pathway courses during high school. Our strong outcomes are also reflected in our 89.6% four-year graduation rate and 95.1% six-year graduation rate and continued public demand with a current waitlist of 163 students. Importantly, our high-needs students have consistently outperformed the state in ELA performance over multiple years. For example, our ELA performance index for high-needs students was 58.9, whereas the state was 54.9. In addition, CSDE rated our school as meets across all multilingual learner compliance categories and commended the strength of our TESOL teachers, the individualized scheduling of supports based on student needs, and the consistency and fidelity of services provided to students and families. We have worked hard to meet the needs of all of our students and have prioritized staffing decisions based on how seriously we take the responsibility for ML, EL, and SPED compliance. At the same time, we recognize our areas for continued growth and are actively taking action. We are continuing to work on decreasing chronic absenteeism. While we have improved from 39.1% in 22-23 to 27.3% in 24-25, we remain focused on further progress. We are also increasing teacher certification through retention incentives and certification support, with 21 educators currently pursuing traditional certification. Finally, we are committed to ensuring our ninth graders are successfully demonstrating on track to graduation, successfully earning 6+ credits in freshman year. In fact, under the new high school leadership and schedule improvements, next year, all freshmen are positioned to take 7 credits in their 9th grade schedules. We recognize both the progress we have made and understand the work still ahead of us. Alongside our governing council, we remain committed to continuous improvement and ensuring that every student receives a high-quality education and support that they deserve. We respectfully request renewal of our charter and thank you for your partnership and continued support of educational equity and excellence and parent choice.
Good afternoon. I'm Rajiv Lakra. As has been said, I'm the chair of the Achievement First Bridgeport Board. Thank you all for the opportunity to speak today. Before I get into these statements, I also wanted to thank Dr. Jenkins and her team. Throughout this process, they have been transparent and supportive and very much appreciate the communication and the back and forth with their team. So with that, the Achievement First Bridgeport Board is very proud of our school's progress in multiple areas, including but not limited to what was described by Dr. Jenkins and her team as a model English language learner program. The school team has been deeply committed to serving all students strongly. We recognize the areas identified by the Department of Education throughout the renewal process and appreciate the feedback and the guidance provided. The school and governing council have already begun to closely review those areas, and we understand that strong governance, oversight, compliance, and operational effectiveness are critical to long-term success and stability of our schools. We remain committed to strengthening our practices in these areas. This includes continued attention to board governance and oversight practices, financial monitoring, and reporting processes, policy and manual review procedures, and recruitment efforts related to board vacancies and required representation. In addition, we are reviewing and refining internal processes related to board documentation, evaluations, policy approvals, data verification, and compliance monitoring to support greater consistency, clarity, and accountability moving forward. The Governing Council is also working to strengthen oversight through more consistent monitoring of school performance and financial operations, while continuing to collaborate closely with school leadership and the network. While we recognize there's additional work ahead, we are committed to addressing these concerns thoughtfully and collaboratively in support of our students, staff, and families. We appreciate the partnership and support of the Department of Education throughout this process, and we view this renewal period as an important opportunity for continued growth and improvement. I also want to thank the two leaders on either side of me. Without their work, the improvements and the high level of achievement that you see in our schools would not be possible. So these folks are just amazing. I want to make sure that they're recognized as well. Thank you.
Questions, comments? All in favor of renewing the Achievement First Bridgewater Academy, say that. Opposed? Congratulations, motion carries. Thank you, Dr. Jenkins and your staff for caring for today, as well as all the accountability and support to see there as well. Thank you for that. Item AI, the receipt of the racial imbalance report. Have a motion. Moved. Second. Some felt board members that have been with us for a while, we certainly know what this is all about.
Good afternoon, everyone. Mike McKeon, legal director, just in case you forgot. As Aaron just referenced, this is one of the annual rituals, along with me wearing my seersucker suit after Memorial Day. But I have to say that Laura Anastasia was our office has long handled this area, and one of the many areas that Laura so capably handles. And as she is really the authority on this, I'm going to allow her to, I'm going to be quiet. She will speak.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm so used to saying good morning. Each year, as many of you know, we receive the racial imbalance report to see which schools in the state of Connecticut are basically out of balance. They have more students of color concentrated in one or more schools in their district as opposed to the overall district population. The statutes look to the Board of Education to rectify that in some way, to spread out students so that they are being educated in diverse schools, at least so that the population reflects the population of the students in the district. We have not been enforcing the racial imbalance statutes recently because there has been a moratorium on enforcement imposed by the legislature. So at this point, we have a stay on notifying the school districts of the racially imbalanced schools until 2030, unless of course that changes in the next few legislative sessions. But it does not necessarily stop us from having to issue the report and receive it and make note of the racially imbalanced schools. And as you can see on page 2 of the report, there are 4 schools that continue to have racial imbalance. I think they're familiar to those of you who have been on our board for many years. 2 of them have been identified since 1999. And the others were identified in the mid-2000s. So it's been quite a long time. As a testimony to the fact that it is extremely difficult to get these issues resolved at the local level. So in any event, we are at a point where we need to accept the racial imbalance report. I will not be notifying the school districts this year in accordance with the amendment to the statute. And the last legislative session, there was some movement to have FDE conduct a study of the racial imbalance laws to see if there are other ways to get a better closer result to what we are seeking. I don't know if that's going to move forward in the next legislative session, but we will have it seen.
I just want to add one thing because Laura noted that a couple of these schools have been on the list since 1999. So new board members, I think it's all. How's that? When prior to the moratorium, the process was that Laura would do this study. She would issue this report. She'd notify the districts. They would come before the OPDC. We would say, "What are you doing about this?" They would have to. They'd be ordered to submit a plan. Submit the plan, and then nothing would change. And they'd come back a couple of years later and try a new plan. And the problem was is that we really had no enforcement mechanism, except to bring them up here, put them under public scrutiny, and hope that they could do something. I mean, now I have to say, the last time that Fairfield came up, because they've had various plans. In fact, my first LPDC meeting back in November 2021, it was Representative Fairfield to talk about this. And they did have a district-wide discussion about even redistricting. So I think particularly the current superintendent, Mike Testani, really was, working with the board to try to come to some resolution. But that didn't work forward as far as the redistricting goes. And then as Laura said, the moratorium was placed aside from the report, and it's ongoing now for another few years. So I just want to clarify that, it's not like we could say you've got to do X, Y, and Z, period. We're going to, have that enforced by the AG's office. We do not have that authority.
And I think one of the difficulties that the districts tend to have is that there is a lot of community opposition to having their children move to another school. There's a lot of close ties to the neighborhood school, and it makes it very difficult for the districts to come up with a solution that will actually physically move children around the district. So, in all fairness, this has been a very difficult issue over the years. The school districts that have been successful in, eliminating racial imbalance have either closed the racially imbalanced schools and distributed the students elsewhere, or they have completely reconfigured their schools. And in some districts, that's just not as easily done as in others.
It's interesting too, in that when Laura talks about there was, opposition in local towns, and the opposition came from both ends, both from the racially balanced school where people would say, well, I don't want my kids to have to go to another school because of the racial imbalance. And other people who are at other schools, and they say, well, we don't have to go over to that school because of that school's racial imbalance. So it's really cutting both ways. And in fact, some years ago, the parent, Fairfield, wasn't it? He filed a complaint with the Federal Office for Civil Rights. He was Department of Ed, saying that students who were in racially imbalanced schools, they were being adversely affected by this whole law. They're going to have to leave their school. We finally got OCR to use it, but it took a while. So this is something that the original, when you talk about resistance, one might form the third scenario. I mean, really pretty much across the board because people understandably don't want to leave their neighborhood school.
I know this moratorium that was now 2030. This is the third time they pushed it up. Is there any moratorium on not having to file the report? I mean, did they ever consider that? I mean, it's such a great amount of work to be done that, and just so the board knows, this is, a statute, the report has to be made. We have to accept it, but that's all. This moratorium will go. So we'll have to do this next year. Right. Is there ever any thought that part of the process will be to put a moratorium on the report itself and not until they figure out what they want to do and not have you do basically work that really isn't at this point necessary?
That's an excellent question. Far be it for me to be able to delve into the mind of legislators. It's probably a good thing, but I don't know. I think my thought, this pure speculation, is that there's thought that if they did that, they'd essentially be putting the whole statute to bed, and that might be a bad look. They can still say, this is important to us. We still have to do this report. The state board is aware of it. So I think that'll probably keep going.
Yeah. Is there any indication in the report? Because all I can think of is districts that work very hard to make sure that they fall in compliance. Is there any indication by the report that some of those districts are saying, why should we? We don't, why should we? And that they're sort of swaying to almost being out of compliance? Do we have an increase in that or at all, or?
I don't really see that.
Okay, well, that's
You know,
good.
so I think that that's the plus out of this. I think there is a concerted effort, but you know, the difficulty is that districts don't have a whole lot of control over who lives in which attendance zone.
Right.
So, you know, there are schools that kind of go into and out of the imbalance. For example, Smith School in West Hartford is right on the cusp. We have a school in Hamden that is in again, out again. And it's not because of their policies or procedures. It's just the overall population living within that.
A lot of times it's housing. Like,
Yeah, it's housing. It is
Yeah.
housing. Yes.
It really is, you're right, Karen, it's absolutely a housing-based issue. So obviously we can't do
So a little bit of context, setting and background into the change legislation, and I'll have Laura be prepared to jump in here as well. I think will be helpful. There are lots of conversations. This is the second time that it is pushed, and I think it's 2028, not 2030. And so it was initially 2030, and then legislators got involved and said it's 2028. The reasoning being, as somebody said before, that they don't want to dismiss this issue, but they recognize that this piece of legislation has been on the books since
1969.
Like 40 years or something.
And so it's been there for quite some time, and we figure we should be looking if there are other ways to address this issue and look across the country to see if there are any practices that we can do. And so last year when it was really about, not so much about concern about us doing the report as it was about the districts and what they needed to do, and to pause that for a while until the department was able to do a study or a report to figure out, to bring forward recommendations. However, the money that they never appropriated funds for us to do it. So the time expired without that report done. Because the resources were not there. And I'll let you pick it up from here, Laura, because you were very much a part of that conversation.
Sure, thanks, Commissioner. This year they did originally, the legislation did say 2030, but they ended up amending that on the floor of the House to do 2028. And then again require us to do a study. We told them how much money they would need for an appropriation in order to conduct that study and partner with an outside entity to get that done. They did not give us the money.
So it got moved back to 2030 because folks really were concerned that they didn't want to push it out that far, but let's do the report. So they moved it back to 2028. We don't have the resource to do a study. So I'm processing what that means for us, because I don't want this to be just continue to do that. But they were I think they were very concerned and wanted to make sure that we were paying attention to this. But what is the right attention that should be paid, and what is it that we want to recommend moving forward? And sitting here, I can't give that recommendation, but I just wanted you to have a context of kind of how we got here in the time moving to where we are. But clearly, I think Lori's support that there were concerns about this issue enough that folks were saying we didn't want to wait until 2030. We wanted to move it back to 2028, but money still didn't materialize. So I've got to figure out if there are ways for us to do this, even without an appropriation, to get it done.
For the newer board members, I would say the schools that, were mentioned, I think probably twice, if not 3 times, they came to legislation policy over the years. And it was, here we are again, then come to the full board. And even sometimes legislation policy and then to the full board, it would be a whole new story. Depends on who was sitting in front of us and who they brought with them. So it really was something that just was every year, and it got frustrating as a board. What can we do? They're out of compliance. What can we do? Dr. Zenman.
Thank you, Erin. Thank you. I'd like to, Laura. The last pre-moratorium hearing on this issue, I think, was one of my first hearings before. I concur with the summary of the disabilities and parents that have felt to be board member in that situation. I guess the question I had was just sort of a substantive one a little bit. it's unclear, we didn't have much enforcement capability. The value of this sort of public testimony is it's unclear as sent to the districts. I guess I'm wondering, if you were to sort of put in a graph, some of these long time imbalance, is the level of imbalance, and has that gotten worse or is it the same or gotten better since the moratorium was imposed? Are there any changes we should be aware of imbalance?
It depends on the school, but, for example, Charter Oak in West Hartford, they actually they got an appropriation for a very large school expansion many years ago. And that idea was to create space so they can bring students in from other attendance zones, and that would solve the problem. And it actually did for quite a few years. And they had the highest racial imbalance in the state. And they went to be imbalanced, which was delightful. I was thrilled. But, now they're creeping back up again because, again, it's a very popular school and the students who live in that zone, it's a magnet school, but they have the right to attend that magnet and they want to. And the district does not want to say no to them. So that was that situation. I think with Fairfield, it seems to have pretty much gotten worse and worse as each year goes on. They've had some fluctuations back and forth, but on the whole, I think it's gotten worse. And with New Lebanon and Hamilton Avenue, my impression is that it has gotten slowly worse. It hasn't really gone down at all.
Yeah, so as I think we've correctly noted, a lot of this is outside our control, depends on housing. At the same time, I'd be wondering, in the back of your mind, is the fact that you might be sitting in that chair and talking to us about it might have affected behavior at some level. We should be hope that if we do deal with this issue, we bring back a revised version some way in the future. Anyway, I could agree with the commission on her assessment. Thank you.
I certainly agree that we need to keep this at the forefront, not to let it slide. If we don't pay attention to it, no one will pay attention to it. And he said that this is a long racial Connecticut for purposes of enrollment, where schools get overcrowded. School districts will redistrict, they will redraw the attendance lines. So, I mean, the point is, it can be done. And in my experience in multiple districts, and Hamden was one of them. In Hamden in particular, I remember we drew the lines to balance the student population. We had so many evenings at night of parents coming up saying, I don't want my child to move, I don't want my child to move. In the end, we had to do it. We had to make sure that it was also racially balanced when we did it. And I can tell you that in the end, I was the assistant superintendent. So that was really the complaint department. I did not get one phone call after all of that like warfare in public. I did not get one phone call saying, I hate this redistricting. But quite to the contrary, I got phone calls from parents saying, oh, I really love the school. And these were from some parents who actually stood up to complain, don't do it. And then years later, not too many years later, it was Region 10, which is Harwinton and Burlington, tiny district. And I did the unthinkable. I moved Burlington kids to the Harwinton school. And again, same experience. The only calls I got afterwards were positive phone calls saying, I love that school. I love that, in that case, I love that in the smaller class size, and I love the teacher. So I guess my point is saying this is done redistricting. We've changed attendance catchment areas in the past. It can be done, and I'm just sitting here thinking, what would be great is if we had if you're on the list 2 times, then you have to do something. I mean, I don't know what our teeth would be to enforce that. But I think there are mechanisms available to address this. And I just think a reasonable rule of you try this, And if you didn't do it 2 times, then we're gonna come in and help you redistrict. I think that will motivate the creativity within districts.
Yeah.
To actually figure out a way to get this done.
Questions, comments?
No, but
Oh.
I remember this being discussed 5, 6 years ago, and there were some districts that just drew a line in the sand. It wasn't going to be done because if I transfer one kid from a group of kids from one part of the town to the other part of the town, they better get on a school bus and travel for 45 minutes. And does that make any sense? And it would, you know, you're right in that it can be done. But what's the fallout that's going to come? You got lucky, I think. You got lucky. But it's just not going to happen that way. And I'm looking at this list, and this is 5 or 6 years later, I'm seeing some of the same schools still there.
Same schools from 12 years.
I will share, reaffirm my commitment.
Yes.
Just to make sure we'll find a way. I know again, the resources wasn't there, but I don't believe it's something you just let sit dormant and go hunt again the next session, because I do believe that there's advocacy for the schools to not have to come before the board, and I can understand that, and for the board to have to engage in that, but at least, you know, we don't know what we'll find, but looking to see what is occurring across other states and benchmarking some of that and seeing then if there are different things we can recommend. I think it's worthy of making sure that we do that. So I've been looking under our couch cushions to see what we have for resources and what it costs, even though we didn't get the resource to do it, to make sure we do some due diligence around it as well. So.
Yeah, because we hate to see it, and I'm glad to hear that other districts are not just saying, well, the state isn't even looking at this, why should we go through it? So I'm glad that's not the case, and that when we have to look at it, make sure that there's more schools out there. So I'm glad that's. Okay, all in favor of the receipt of the racial imbalance report? Aye. Opposed? Carries.
Thank you very much.
I may have a motion for 8. Actually, we'll put them together, J and K, for recognition of our student board members.
Second.
Find the names in the third paragraph. Okay, whereas section 10.10-1 of the Connecticut General Statutes provides for the appointment of 2 student members to the Connecticut State Board of Education, and whereas Governor Ned Lamont appointed Samar Basop of South Windsor to the State Board of Education for a 1-year term commencing August 18th, 2025, and whereas during this tenure, Mr. Basat has served with distinction and has contributed greatly to the board's discussion of education policy issues. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the State Board of Education extends to Samad its appreciations for its commitment to education excellence and equity in Connecticut's public schools and best wishes for success in his future endeavors. Approved this 3rd day of June, 2026, by the Commissioner and myself. Congratulations. Just a few words.
Yeah.
Oh, you want a picture?
You want a picture? You can't do it against.
Do it against someone.
Come against it.
Yeah. You know, usually we had the flag and it threw me this morning, but the flag was missing.
Here.
Yeah, okay, we'll go over here. You get the net, and the net.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I want to say, I want to give a big, huge thanks, for the opportunity to be on the board and really voice, like be the voice to students here, in KIT. And it is a great responsibility to talk to, great responsibility to be able to advocate from all the way from, Greenwich to Hartford to South Windsor and all around, and being able to talk with all of you and gain knowledge on, topics all the way from chronic absenteeism to the economics behind how we distribute money. It's a great knowledge to have and a great knowledge to learn, throughout my time on this board. And given this opportunity, I'll make sure to carry it further. I'll be going down to, Nashville later for college, taking this knowledge down and then hopefully spreading it to empower students and to, empower student voice. And I really want to say that I'm once again truly thankful for this opportunity, and I hope to stay in touch.
Thank you. Whereas section 10-1 of the Connecticut General Statute provides for the appointment of 2 student members to the Connecticut State Board of Education. And whereas Governor Ned Lamont appointed Haniska Nakala of East Granby State Board of Education for a 1-year term commencing August 18th, 2025. And whereas during her tenure, Ms. Nakala has served with distinction and has contributed greatly to the board's discussion of education policy issues. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the State Board of Education extends to Haniska its appreciation for her commitment to educational excellence and equity in Connecticut's public schools and best wishes for success in her future endeavors. Approved this 3rd day of June, 2026. A few words.
I have to thank everyone on this board. I learned so much from you, and I've been so happy to be on this board and to hear your guys' stories and your life experiences. And I think I've been truly humbled, and I've experienced a lot that I never thought I would on this board. Being engaged in these debates and these conversations, and like Smart said, being able to represent students from all across Connecticut is such a great privilege. And I plan to carry this knowledge to Washington and Lee in Virginia, where I'm going to be an education policy minor. And I think all the knowledge that I'm doing is definitely going to help me in the future. I don't know exactly what I want to do in the future. I'm thinking of getting my JD and maybe being involved in special education lawyer.
We have a church.
And I just couldn't have done it without all of you. And thank you so much for this opportunity.
Well, thank you to both of you. Wish you the best of luck at your 2 schools. Enjoy all of it, I'm sure. At lunch, for those of you outside the board, we had really good discussion about how members of the state board should come on and what we're going to do. So I think your input that we heard that, might see some changes, asking, going to the governor's office, of course, and asking maybe for some changes with your input, because it was great insights to hear your thoughts on maybe a 2-year term versus 1, the commitment and also the collaboration with the student council and having regular updates from that student council instead of hearing just once a year from them, actually having our student members being the liaisons to that council. So really great, great idea. So thank you for that. And we wish you the best of luck. Okay, our last agenda item, 8X. Oh, no, sorry. We're on 8L. Adoption of our meeting schedule. Have a motion. Second. Okay, you have it in front of you. You might notice, and I think all the sent out explanation to you. You'll see that February is skipped there. We did that intentionally. The commission and I spoke a lot during this session. The staff is very busy time for them. Everything is condensed because of vacation. So we thought it might be a time that we could really just skip over that period of time. And that's why you don't see one. And then you see just the other ones. The January 13th is because we all meet on the session, and that's the first Wednesday, because I know we're so used to the first Wednesdays, and that's why they're designated in that way. So, and the end is, the end of session, we are okay, because we will have a June meeting. The session will end after us on June, because all the rigmarole of how they meet after the first Monday, after the first Wednesday, and we figured out that they will finish after.
They end June 9th.
Yeah, they end June 9th, and so we actually could get our board meeting. Any questions or concerns with
that mean that we have a July meeting? I mean, I know the last 2 years we have not, and the reason has always been like.
It's always tentative, and a lot of times I can recall, I think once that we did, and it was the session ended and we had to do something based on that session. So we've had that happen, if you could recall, not last retreat, the retreat before, we had to have a meeting, we had to take up the cell phone guidelines issue. So there are some things that come out of session that we have to do it, but we always look back to that, like for the cell phone, we knew we didn't have to call just the special meeting. We did it before our retreat. We actually had a board meeting and held our retreat. So a lot of that depends on current things that happen.
We're going to be doing it at this retreat.
Yes.
We're revisiting several policies at this retreat. But we really work very hard internally in our planning to at least give that July month off, so that we try to front load and do other things that we don't necessarily have to get into July if we can.
We always put it on it, but like I said, I think I can recall once that we actually met.
We know where the retreat is.
Wilcox Technical School in Meredith. That's where the retreat is. We don't know our evening meeting. That's determined later into the calendar. That's the meeting that we held that night.
Do you know where the evening meeting is coming October will be?
No, we do not.
That could be just.
Yeah, that will be discussed. Any questions?
No. Al just told me in your inbox to just receive the invitations for the Blue Ribbon Schools and celebration, and he is looking forward to seeing all of you there.
Yes. That was fun. There was many of you there last year. I know when we were in North, it was connected to our evening meeting, and it really is just wonderful. And Connecticut was the first in the country to honor, even though it was canceled at the federal level. And we continued with ours in Connecticut. In fact, I was asked about that on our call. Asked me the other day if Connecticut is doing it. I said, yes, they are. I said, it's already scheduled. So all in favor of acceptance of the calendar? Aye. Opposed? Sure. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you. Oh, I see some of you close that. Good name.
Academic theater.
Of course.
Something